After my divorce from my husband was finalized, I moved in with my daughter, Natalie. About 6 months later, something unexpected happened. It was my day off, and I was relaxing at home with Natalie when I got a call from my mom. To my shock, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law had gone to my parents' house and let themselves in without permission. I quickly got ready and went to my parents' place. When I arrived, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law were sitting in the living room, waiting for me. I had no idea why they were there. "Why did you both show up at my parents' house?" I asked. My ex-husband, John, surprised me with his answer, "I want you to pay me back the money you owe me. My name is Aaron, and I'm 40 years old. I worked in an office, and I was married to John for 14 years. Our daughter, Natalie, was born just around the time we got married, and she's now in 8th grade. We were once a happy family, and I thought we would always have a loving home." I met John on a blind date and was instantly drawn to his friendly, kind, and cheerful personality. He liked me too, and we stayed in touch throughout high school. After a few meetups, we started dating. A year later, he proposed, and we got married. I loved him deeply, and I was so happy when he chose me to be his wife. I had a close group of friends from high school, and we would always get together. When I told them I was getting married, they all congratulated me, and they came to our wedding. They joked about how they'd all want to get married too someday. After my wedding, one by one, my friends also got married. We laughed about how we'd gone from a group of teenagers to adults. Then, as I got pregnant, they all started having kids too. Soon, we weren't just mom friends, we were a group of parents. I felt like we were going through life together, and I believed we'd stay close forever. I was happy being a wife and mother, but I also loved working. After college, I got a job in the planning and development department at a big company, and I worked hard every day. The work was tough, but it was also rewarding. Every day felt like a chance to learn and improve. One of my friends from the moms group, who was a stay-at-home mom, once told me, "You're really a workaholic, Aaron, but you also have a fulfilling life with your family. It's like you have two bodies or something." She thought I was strong, but honestly, I wished I had the energy of a superhero. Both John and Natalie helped a lot at home, which made it easier to balance work and family life. "I'm home." "Oh, Mommy, welcome home." When Natalie was little, she would greet me with a smile and a hug after work. Just hugging her made all my tiredness go away. "Welcome home, honey, dinner is ready," John would say. John stopped working full-time after Natalie was born and switched to a part-time job so I could keep my career. He worked at a cafe and took care of picking Natalie up from school. By the time I got home after a long day, John would have dinner ready. It was such a relief to come home to a hot meal. His cooking always made me feel better. My life felt like it was supported by my husband and daughter, which allowed me to focus on my job. As I got better at my work, I was promoted. That meant more overtime, and I often came home late. By then, Natalie was older and understood that I had a lot of work to do. John also started working longer hours at the cafe. He had become really interested in coffee and learned how to roast beans. He experimented with different brewing methods, both at work and at home. His coffee was great, and we'd often enjoy it together as a family. But slowly, I didn't notice that our family dynamics were starting to change. One day, Natalie came to me looking upset. "What's wrong? You said you wanted to talk about something." "Well, actually, the other day, when I went to see a movie with my friends, I saw Dad with another woman." "What?" "They weren't holding hands or anything, but they seemed a little too friendly, and since last year, I've noticed Dad on the phone a lot before you come home. He seems really happy while looking at his phone. At first, I thought he was talking to you, Mom, but after seeing him with that woman, I'm not sure anymore." Natalie's words hit me hard. She looked so sad, in a way no middle schooler should. "I'm so sorry, sweetie, I didn't realize you felt this way," I said, hugging her tightly. "I've been a little focused on work, haven't I?" "No, I think it's cool that you work so hard, Mom, so don't feel bad about it." I felt really happy and touched by Natalie's kind and understanding words. "Thank you, Natalie, I'll talk to your dad about this, okay? And if he's really having an affair, I think I'll get a divorce. Would that be okay with you, honey?" When I asked her that, she nodded. I don't like the idea of my dad having an affair. Just knowing that and being with him would make me feel bad. Hearing this from my daughter made me realize how much I had neglected my family. I knew I needed to look into this situation carefully. not just for my own sake, but for Natalie's. She had the courage to bring up such a difficult topic, and I had to do something about it. I quickly hired an investigation agency to look into John's affair. The results shocked me. John was indeed having an affair, just like Natalie had suspected. They even had photos of him with his mistress. But what surprised me even more was who his affair partner was. It was Stacy, one of my old high school classmates and a member of the mom's group. I was more shocked by Stacy's involvement than the affair itself. I couldn't believe that someone I had trusted and considered a friend would betray me like this. Stacy was a stay-at-home mom, and she was the last in our group to get married. She had a young child, around 5 years old, and yet she was having an affair with John, neglecting her own responsibilities as a mother. When I saw the evidence, I was so stunned that I couldn't move for a moment. If I hadn't been in my room, Natalie could have seen those photos, and that would have made things even worse. I wasn't ready to confront John, and I definitely couldn't show Natalie those pictures. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Then, one of my friends from the mom's group mentioned that she had switched jobs, so I thought it would be a good chance to suggest that we all get together. Stacy didn't know that I knew about the affair, so my friends arranged the meetup, and I planned to confront Stacy, my husband's lover, 3 weeks later. During that time, I quickly hired a lawyer and started preparing for the divorce. I told Natalie what I had discovered and explained that her dad and I were getting divorced. We spent our days off looking for new apartments to move into. Finally, the day came when I would face Stacy at the gathering. At the restaurant, we all caught up with each other, and I asked my friend about her new job. We all shared updates. Stacy still had no idea I knew about her secret, so we all talked casually. Everyone is working, so it's good that things are changing. I'm just a housewife, so I'm stuck in the same routine, Stacy said. Well, you don't have to work, Stacy, since your husband can support you, another friend said. I do appreciate my husband, but sometimes I feel bored with it, Stacy replied. That was my cue. It was time to confront her. So that's why you're having an affair with other people's husbands, right? Huh? Stacy and the rest of my friends froze when they heard my words. Hey, Aaron, what do you mean by that? One of my friends asked, confused. Stacy stayed silent, her face going pale. It looks like Stacy is having an affair with my husband, John, I said bluntly. No way, you must be joking. Stacy would never do something like that, one of my friends said, defending her. Stacy quickly denied it. That's not true. Aaron, what are you talking about all of a sudden? You must have mistaken me for someone else. Oh, really? Then why don't you all take a look at this? I said, pulling the photos from my bag and placing them on the table. My friend stared at the pictures, shocked. Oh my gosh, Stacy, why? Stacy clearly hadn't expected me to have proof. She covered her mouth, stunned. Why did you have an affair with my husband? I asked, still trying to process it. Stacy finally gave in. I'm really sorry. I walked into the cafe where your husband works. I didn't know he worked there. After that, I started going there more often. My husband provides for me, but after we got married, he stopped caring about me, and I started feeling lonely. Stacy started crying, but I wasn't moved by her tears. Even if you were lonely, having an affair, especially with a friend's husband, is just wrong, I said calmly. Turning to my friends, I added, I'm sorry to involve all of you, but I need to let Stacy know that I'll be suing for alimony. I've already sent certified mail to her house, so her husband should have received it by now. Stacy gasped in shock. You need to be held accountable for your actions, I said firmly. Stacy nodded, looking pale and defeated. The rest of the mom's group was upset and said, we can't trust you anymore, Stacy. We left the restaurant, leaving Stacy behind. Now that Stacy was out of the way, it was time to deal with John. I'm sure Stacy had already contacted John about what happened, so when I got home, John was waiting by the entrance, looking panicked. Hey, how could you do this? What? I just got a call from Stacy. Are you really talking about your affair? Why are you making this so public? You're terrible. You pretended to be a good husband, but behind my back, you were having an affair. No, that's... But Stacy has a family too. Why expose her to her husband like that? That's ridiculous. I guess people who have affairs think the same way, huh? You think as long as the other person doesn't know, it's fine, right? But what you did was wrong. So now everything has to come to light as part of your punishment. That's why I'm divorcing you and demanding alimony and child support. With the affair already proven and no way for him to deny it, John agreed to the divorce, but he was reluctant to pay alimony and child support. After I hired a good lawyer and made it clear I was ready to take the case to court, he finally agreed. So, I divorced my ex-husband, sold the house we'd lived in, and moved into a new apartment with Natalie. I filed for alimony from both John and Stacy, and they each paid me $30,000. I also demanded child support from John. After the divorce was finalized, Natalie and I settled into our new life. As expected, the whole situation traumatized me, but over time, the pain began to heal. However, about 6 months later, something unexpected happened. I was relaxing at home with Natalie on my day off when I received a call from my mother. What she told me shocked me. My ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law had suddenly appeared at my parents' house and forced their way in without permission. My father was out handling some personal matters, which is why my mother called me in a panic. I quickly got ready and headed to my parents' house. When I arrived, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law were sitting on the living room sofa, waiting for me. I had no idea why they had shown up. "What are you both doing here at my parents' house all of a sudden?" I asked. And then, my ex-husband said something that completely shocked me. "I want you to give me back the money that you owe me." "What? I never borrowed any money from you. I paid $15,000 for the wedding, didn't I? You were the one who wanted the wedding, so I lent you that money. Since you divorced me, this is all fraud. I could sue you for marriage fraud, but all I want is for you to return the $15,000 as a settlement." His demand was outrageous. My ex-mother-in-law chimed in, saying I should pay him as soon as possible. After the divorce, I knew John had gone back to working at the cafe, but I also knew the pay there wasn't much. He must have been struggling financially, which was probably why he was making such ridiculous requests. Let me remind you, we both played equal roles in the wedding, and after that, I paid more than you for our living expenses. If you calculate it all, $15,000 is nothing compared to what I spent, so don't harass me with your impossible demands. I tried to get them to leave, but they refused to leave easily. Then, my father came home. Apparently, he had received a call from my mother and rushed back. "What are you doing here?" he asked, glaring at them. My ex-husband explained the same thing to my father, looking terrified at my father's angry tone. My father listened in silence, clearly shocked and furious at John's demands. "You're the one who had an affair. If you're going to make these ridiculous demands, get the hell out of here." With that, my father tried to kick them out, but my ex-husband fell to his knees. "Please, Aaron, lend me the money. Stacy's husband is demanding alimony from me too, and I really can't pay. Please, $15,000, no, $10,000 would help." It was insane. He was begging for money at a time like this. I coldly replied, "No, I can't do that. Now go home." But then, my ex-mother-in-law said, "You're also responsible for what happened," and insisted that I was obligated to lend him the money. The situation was getting out of hand, so my father said, "Fine, I'll get the money, wait here," and went to another room. "Hey, Dad, what do you mean?" I rushed after him, and my father grinned. "I have plenty of money. Since we have it, why don't we give it to them?" I was convinced when I saw my father take the money out of the closet. Well, this should be interesting, I thought. My father put the money in an envelope and handed it to John. After they finally got what they wanted, my ex-husband and his mother left, looking pleased. As soon as they left, I locked the door and called the police. The two of them must have checked the envelope after leaving because they came back quickly, banging on our door. "Hey, what's going on here? This is Monopoly money. I don't want this fake cash," my ex-husband yelled angrily at the door. I laughed and said, "Since we have so much money, I thought I'd share some with you." Then my ex-husband shouted, "You've got to be kidding," and started banging harder on the door. It sounded like they were kicking the door with their feet, but they didn't realize this was going to cause big trouble for them. John and his mom were still kicking the door when the police showed up and arrested them. Neighbors gathered around, and many of them saw John and his mom get arrested. In the end, John didn't get any money, but he had to pay a fine for his arrest and the damage to our door. Also, one of the people who saw the arrest was a regular customer at the cafe where John worked. The news spread fast, and he was fired right away. Now, John can't find a job and has moved back to his parents' house. His parents are now paying alimony and child support for him. I also got a restraining order against my ex-in-laws for my family. Now, if anything happens, we can call the police, and they'll come right away. I'm happier than ever with Natalie now. I'll keep working hard and watching my daughter grow up. Thanks for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
You've inherited over $3 million, right? We've already started constructing a duplex for us to live together. I've even included the kitchen of my dreams, my mother-in-law says in a tone that's almost dreamy. I've quit my job. I'm planning to start a business with the inheritance that Ashley has received. My husband announces, looking oddly pleased. Wait a minute, I've told you I haven't received any inheritance yet, right? You've quit your job, and you're building a duplex. What's happening? Don't lie. It's clear you've inherited. How about we take a trip before the house gets built? How about Hawaii? My father-in-law chimes in, adding to the growing confusion with my husband and my mother-in-law. What on earth are these people thinking? They want to use the precious inheritance I received from my mother and spend it on whatever they please. Even though I was filled with rage, I didn't know what to do. The story goes back a few months ago. My name is Ashley. I'm 38 years old and work as a high school teacher. I married David, an office worker who is 2 years older than me, 12 years ago. Soon after we got married, our only daughter Julie was born, and since then, my days have been filled with work and child rearing. Today is the day I'm visiting my hospitalized mother with my daughter. Oh, Grandma, it's been a while. Well, Julie, welcome. My mother lies in her bed, lovingly stroking Julie's hair. Her hand is noticeably thinner, and her complexion looks poor. Next to my mother's bed stands a middle-aged man wearing glasses and a suit. As I nod towards him, he returns the nod and leaves the room. Mom, who is that man? Just an acquaintance. Don't worry about it. More importantly, Ashley, are you still doing well? And David, is he well? My mother's eyes, a shade close to blue, sparkle softly as she smiles. She met my father, who ran an import-export business overseas, and came to the U.S. as his bride. Raising a child in a foreign country must have been hard, but my mother and father worked together to bring me up. One of the reasons I am able to work as a teacher today is because my mother taught me many things since I was small. I am deeply grateful to my parents who raised me with love in a wealthy family. After my father passed away a few years ago, my mother, now alone, fell ill and was hospitalized. She transferred the business to a relative, and now she spends her remaining days quietly in the hospital. I'm fine, Mom. Is there anything you need? Just having you and Julie come to see me is more than enough. After having such a conversation and spending a good amount of time talking with my mother, Julie, and I headed home. Julie talks to my mother about things that happened at school and the book she has recently read. She's at that tricky age of 10, but our relationship is good. Even if I take away my parental bias, I think she is a bright and honest child who is growing up well. We're home. Oh, well, welcome back. How's my mother-in-law doing? David asks as he greets us. Mom is as usual. How about you? Your seminar, was it? Oh, I heard some good stuff. Looking forward to the next one. Recently, my husband has been attending seminars on quitting his job and starting a side business. He must want more money, but the company he works for is not top tier. It's not bad, and with my salary, we are doing just fine. I find it distasteful when he is so greedy for money, which I suppose he gets from his parents. Ever since we got married, I've been put off by his parents' excessive stinginess and their habit of begging for small amounts of money whenever we see them, so I've been keeping my distance. They've never given Julie any Christmas gifts. Fortunately, my in-laws live far away, so we don't have to interact much, and my husband does well with household chores, so I guess it's okay. As long as I have my mother, my husband, Julie, and our modest but ordinary life, I'm content. Then one day, I got a call from the hospital. My mother's condition had suddenly worsened, and she was in critical condition. When my family rushed to the hospital, my mother was barely breathing. Mom? Grandma? No. Ashley, I've always wanted you to be happy. cherish Julie more than anything. I love you. In the end, those were my mother's last words. My mother, who raised me with all her heart alongside my father, adored Julie from the bottom of her heart. My mother's face in the coffin was peaceful, and all I could do was cry. Julie was by my side, crying with me. A little while after my mother passed away, an envelope arrived at our house, a law firm. Ashley was perplexed as she opened the envelope from an unfamiliar sender. Inside was a document stating, "I have been entrusted with your mother's will, which leaves all of her inheritance to you." Ashley and her mother had never discussed the subject of inheritance before, so she was taken aback. However, since the letter had indeed arrived, she decided to visit the law firm on her own. "Hello, I'm the attorney Ed." The man who appeared was the middle-aged gentleman with glasses who had been present when she visited her mother in the hospital. "You were in my mother's hospital room before?" Ashley questioned the man with the familiar face. "Yes, we met in the hospital room. Actually, from that time, I was entrusted by your mother." Hearing his kind voice, Ashley found herself on the verge of tears, and then she was shocked beyond belief. 500 million. Yes, Ashley. When your father passed away, you waived your right to the inheritance so your mother could receive it all. When you add that inheritance to your mother's personal assets, even after deducting taxes, this is the amount your mother has named you as the sole heir. My parents had indeed been wealthy, but I hadn't imagined that they had left such an inheritance. I had never asked my parents for money after getting married and avoided the topic of inheritance as it seemed unlucky. Feeling dizzy, I realized this must be an expression of love from my mother. With that thought, I left the procedures to Ed. Your mother cared about you more than anything. She instructed me to assist you if necessary. Please feel free to discuss anything with me. Thank you. I appreciate your help. Ashley bowed her head several times to Ed and left the room. Time passed, and it was around the time of her mother's 49th day memorial service. Her husband, David, began to frequently ask about her mother's inheritance. When they had married, her father was still running his business, so David was vaguely aware that they were wealthy. Each time she asked him to stop talking about it while she was still mourning, he would fall silent, only to subtly bring up the matter of money after some time. The worst were my in-laws. When they came to my mother's memorial service, my father-in-law said, "Ashley, if you are worried about the inheritance, we can help." Huh? Hey, we've had our fair share of disputes over inheritance. When unmarried siblings died, inheritance can be complicated. If you're troubled, feel free to talk about it. That's right. Rely on us too. Yes. Having never shown any inclination to assist them before, she could only give her in-laws a vague response as they put on a knowing facade. And then, about 3 months after her mother's death, David, who had been quiet recently, finally lost his patience. "Hey, have you received your mother's inheritance yet?" A bad feeling swept over her quickly. Ashley lied. The procedures are complicated, so not yet. In reality, she had already completed the procedures and, upon Ed's advice, had deposited the passbook containing the inheritance in a safe deposit box. But it felt right to say that now. Really? But it's been 3 months since your mother passed away, right? Haven't you done the procedures yet? Yeah, so what? Well, never mind. I'm going to bed. For some reason, David headed for the bedroom in high spirits. With the nagging unease in her chest, Ashley prepared for work the next day and then headed for bed. The next day, as Ashley and Julie were cleaning up after dinner, the doorbell rang. Julie hurried to the door, and when Ashley poked her head out from the kitchen, she saw her in-laws who had dropped by unexpectedly and David returning from work. "Why are my father-in-law and mother-in-law here?" "It's not a big deal, Julie. Go to your room." Julie glanced anxiously at us and headed to her room. "What's going on?" "Never mind that, Ashley. We have something to celebrate today." Ed, her father-in-law, was in high spirits as he opened their fridge and took out a beer. "Celebration. You inherited more than $300 million, didn't you? We've already started building a duplex house for us to live together. It even comes with a dreamlike modern kitchen. The one who spoke in the dreamy tone was her mother-in-law. What? What are you talking about, Ashley? Be happy. We've decided to build a duplex house. We used half of our savings and the money that Mom and Dad have put aside for the down payment. The loan is under my name, but you can pay it all at once with your inheritance, right? Give back to the two of them. I quit my job. I decided to start a business using that inheritance you received. David, her husband, looked somehow satisfied as he said these words. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? I told you I haven't received the inheritance yet, didn't I? And what does quitting your job and a duplex house mean? Don't lie, it's clear you've inherited. How about we go on a trip before the house is built? How about Hawaii? Amidst the escalating chaos, David and her mother-in-law were getting excited, agreeing with what Ed said. Then David said, laughing scornfully, "You're stingy, Ashley. We've looked into it because you kept saying you hadn't received the inheritance. You can't renounce an inheritance if you don't process it within 3 months. Whether you lied or told the truth about not processing, you still have inherited, right? That is, considering the scale of my father-in-law's company, there must be more than 300 million. We'll be able to live comfortably thanks to them. Thank you, mother-in-law. Be sure to prepare the money for the duplex house as soon as possible, and my capital too." Seeing David speak like that made her dizzy. But what on earth are these people who want to use my precious inheritance that I received from my mother as they please and indulge in luxury? Although filled with intense anger and about to yell, she couldn't say a word, worried about Julie, who was in the other room. "I'm going outside for a bit." She called out to the three of them, but they didn't hear her, happily discussing how they would use the inheritance. She went out without even taking her wallet. The night wind was cool, and it was then that the tears came. She went to the hilltop park where she used to come with her mother and cried, holding back her voice. Her anger didn't subside. Feeling frustrated and worn out, her heart was exploited. Her emotions were a mess, but she couldn't just say she wanted a divorce. They still had their child, Julie. Her mother's words, "Take care of Julie above all else," came back to her, and tears spilled again. Suddenly, someone spoke to her. Surprised, she opened her eyes, and the person began to speak softly. 3 days later, she called her husband and in-laws to a restaurant with private rooms. "So you finally came back home after that day. Did you withdraw the money, Ashley? You shouldn't leave home without telling your husband." "Exactly." Ignoring the words of the three people, she took out a document. It was a divorce notice already filled out. "David, I want a divorce." "What? What are you saying?" Her husband looked panicked, and her in-laws looked at each other. "I can't go on with you anymore." "What are you saying?" David's face was turning red as he lashed out at her. "You're leaving us after receiving the inheritance. You changed because you got the money, you miser." "That's my words, Ashley. Snap back. Ever since I inherited my mother's estate, you've been out of control. Quitting jobs to start a business, deciding to live with in-laws without even asking, taking out my savings to build a 2-family home, and then planning a trip to Hawaii. Who is the one who changed when the money came in? I can't possibly stay with such people." "Wait, you can't just divorce me like that." "That's right. Our savings after marriage are shared property. Half of the inheritance belongs to David, no matter what." "That's correct. If it comes to that, we will take 300 million with us." David and my in-laws were foaming at the mouth as they approached me. Just as I was about to respond, the door to the private room slid open. Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma should know better. The inheritance Mom received doesn't become shared property, right, Mr. Ed? There stood my daughter Julie and Attorney Ed. "Julie, and who are you?" "I'm Attorney Ed. Ashley's mother had entrusted me with this matter, and I've been advising Ashley." As Ed bowed, Dave seemed flustered. "That's all well and good, but wait. The inheritance doesn't become shared property?" "That's correct. Inherited property from a deceased parent has not become shared property, nor is it subject to the division of property. What? You've got to be kidding me. Is this a mistake? That can't be. In front of the flustered three, I was taken aback. It seems that they really thought that the inheritance I received would become their property. In that case, it's even more reason not to divorce. I'll cling to you no matter what. My husband with bloodshot eyes shouted out without any regard. Stop it already? That was Julie. She continued her calm words. Since Mom suggested divorce, no, since Mom inherited the estate. Has Dad ever thought about Mom once? Grandpa and Grandma only ever talk about money. They never once mentioned me. I can't consider such people as family. David and my in-laws were taken aback. The day I was crying about my inheritance, Julie was the one who spoke up. Julie came running after me, and she told me Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma are too much, trying to take Grandma's legacy for themselves. Mom, I'm on your side. Let's fight this together. With those words, I made up my mind, contacted Ed, and arranged this meeting. Julie, it's not like that. Dad wants you to be happy. That's right, Julie dear. You'd be happier living with us, wouldn't you? That's right. A child shouldn't interfere. My desperate husband and still assertive in-laws. Julie, with an exasperated look on her face, said, I'm going with Mom. I can't bear to be with you anymore. Julie said this and looked away. Anyway, we've made up our minds. Julie and I will be leaving. As I said this calmly, David got angry. Hey, I've never cheated, and you can't force a divorce. I'll hire a lawyer. We'll get that money one way or another. If that's the case, I will take care of it from here. Ed spoke quietly. The issue here is whether there are grave reasons for not continuing the marriage, quitting his job, using the household savings without permission, deciding to live together, and Julie is saying she can't bear it. There are various points we can argue. Moreover, your daughter recorded the sound of all of you begging for Ashley's inheritance. That should also serve as evidence. Damn it. David slumped, and my in-laws turned pale. After seeing that, Julie and I left the restaurant. A year later, thanks to Ed's efforts, my divorce with David was finalized. Julie and I moved into the house my mother had lived in, but there were several times when we received letters saying, I love you, come back, and David was seen loitering near Julie's school. So we asked Abe to apply for a restraining order. After that, it was quiet. According to the rumors, they actually did build a two-family home. My already retired in-laws had to work in a factory, and although David looked for work, he couldn't find any and is now doing manual labor. I heard from the neighbors that there were constant arguments in the new two-family house because of their troublesome fights. They became disliked by everyone in the neighborhood. Julie and I are still living peacefully, helping each other. A while ago, Julie said, I want to study abroad in the country where Grandma grew up, so it cut ties completely with my ex-husband. We made up our minds to move overseas. We used a bit of my mother's inheritance, but I'm sure she would be pleased. Now, Julie seems to be enjoying school every day, and I've started working as a teacher there. I hope these peaceful days continue. After not seeing him for a month, John just thrust a divorce lawyer's business card at me without even asking, Are you okay? Or how are you feeling divorcing a wife who doesn't work? Pay me $1,000 a month as alimony. Sounds good. Take care. John chuckled as he said this, standing beside him. Emily was wrapping her arm around his, wearing a similar smug expression. Fine, let's divorce then. I said it so casually that John seemed a bit surprised, but he quickly shared his smile with Emily. Good thing John isn't much of a thinker. It makes my plan easier to execute. After the divorce papers got approved, I decided to start my revenge plan on both of them. I will make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm a 47-year-old illustrator. I'd also work as a children's book author. I just love drawing. I have two childhood friends, John and Emily. They're important friends to me, and John is also my husband. It all started when John asked me out as I was heading to a different college after high school. I was surprised. I thought he was into Emily, but I couldn't say no to a confession from John, whom I had secretly liked. After some thought and consultation with Emily, I accepted John's proposal. Emily's behavior had been a bit problematic since teens, but she was still a dear friend to both John and me. However, Emily had a tendency to snatch other people's boyfriends and then dump them once they became obsessed with her, causing problems time and again. Her parents were concerned, so John and I often spent time with her to watch over her. John and I got married when we were 25, 4 years later. Emily brought her fiancé into our lives. His name was George, a professional working for a top-tier company. Nice to meet you, Sarah and John. I've heard so much about you. Looking forward to our future together. George was very polite, and we all got along immediately. We would get together during holidays and vacations, taking trips or going on long train rides to enjoy some drinks. However, things started falling apart after Emily got pregnant 2 years into her marriage. John and I originally had many siblings, so there was no worry about an heir. So we decided we didn't need children. Both of us loved kids, but weren't keen on actively caring for them. Besides, we loved our freedom to travel and enjoy drinks. We often found it heartwarming to see families with children, but it was never more or less than that. When Emily announced her pregnancy, John's attitude started to change. He quit smoking because Emily said she couldn't stand the smell, and even offered to drive her to doctor's appointments using his vacation days. I warned him, George might get upset if you're always with Emily. But John argued back, you have work, don't you? She's our childhood friend, and she's reaching out for help. You're heartless. I said, I've been buying things and helping where I can, but going with her to the obstetrician is crossing the line. When I said that, John frowned, and then he glared at me. Why? Because Emily wants it, right? She says she's anxious about the checkup. I can't just let her go alone if she's anxious. All the more reason for George to go with her, right? If you go with her every time, it's almost like you're the father of the baby in her belly. John jealous? You're not going to get pregnant anyway, so what's the problem? He didn't take my concerns seriously, and instead started to snap, saying I was being annoying. We had hardly ever had a fight during our marriage, but things changed when Emily got pregnant. Our arguments increased, and that didn't change even after Emily gave birth. In fact, John started spending even more time with Emily and their child, Emma. But when Emma was 6, an incident occurred. It had to do with the attendees of Emma's graduation ceremonies. The day before the graduation, John suddenly started rummaging through the closet. John, what are you doing? Have a meeting tomorrow. John's workplace had a casual dress code, but there was a rule to wear a suit during client meetings, so he always kept a few suits ready. But they were all thrown on the bed now. No, just trying to decide what to wear for the graduation ceremony. What? You're seriously thinking of attending the graduation? Yeah, George, can't make it. Emily asked me. Wait, that's absurd. No matter how you look at it. I inadvertently raised my voice in denial. Immediately, John's face turned sour. I knew he occasionally picked Emma up from kindergarten, and I had done so myself when asked, yet it was nonsensical for a childhood friend who wasn't even a biological parent to attend a graduation ceremony. What? You still doubt me and Emily? I'm disappointed that you can't even help out. That's not the point. Point anyway. I'm attending the graduation tomorrow, so iron a shirt properly. John said that and abruptly ended the conversation, leaving me behind and going to the bedroom. I had no choice but to call Emily. Hello, Emily. About tomorrow. Sorry about tomorrow. I'm borrowing John. But won't George be upset about the graduation attendance, Sarah? What are you talking about? Obviously, I haven't told George that the graduation is tomorrow. I'll tell him after the ceremony. I was shocked to learn that George didn't know about the graduation schedule. Upon further questioning, it seemed that Emily hadn't informed George about any of the kindergarten events so far, and John had been acting as the father at the kindergarten, which made me dizzy with its selfishness. Wait a minute, Emily. Isn't that extremely unreasonable? It's disrespectful to George, and just because he's a childhood friend, eh? What's wrong? Sarah, you're scary. Well, see you tomorrow. Wait, Emily. I was trembling with anger at Emily, who unilaterally hung up the phone. Still, in the end, I ironed a shirt, prepared a tie, and the next morning saw John off to Emma's graduation ceremony. Since then, Emily and John started going out more frequently, from once a month to once a week, and then to 3 times a week. Eventually, even George seemed to have some suspicions, and one day, while John and Emily were out, he visited our house alone. I'm sorry for visiting you late at night. There's something that's been bothering me. Is it about the 2 of them? Yes, I would like you to take a look at this. George showed me the GPS history he had installed in Emily's car. It showed that she had been staying at a hotel 3 times a week. All of those days, she was out with John, and just by looking at George's face, I understood what that meant. What do you want to do, George? I want to take revenge on those 2. Me too. I can't forgive them for betraying us after all this time. We started planning our revenge on them secretly. First, I started by increasing my income because I had been saving by doing housework and taking care of Emma. My income had drastically decreased. George switched to working from home. And when Emily and John would go out, he would bring Emma to my house, and we would take care of her together. Neither Emily nor John realized that we knew about their relationship, and we were able to gather solid evidence. Once we had collected enough evidence and were ready to take our revenge, we discovered a shocking truth about Emma. George and I struggled with the decision, but we both agreed that we didn't want to hurt young Emma, so we decided to wait until she was an adult to take our revenge. However, even though we decided to endure for 10 years, I was struck with a serious illness. I needed long-term hospitalization, and even at best, I wouldn't be discharged for at least 2 years. Although I could work from the hospital room, it was certain that I would have to reduce my workload. After informing George about the situation, I consulted John. However, John's reaction was no different from when we were making small talk. I'll visit you once in a while. I felt that John no longer had any affection for me, as he didn't even ask about my condition or the name of the disease. In reality, John only visited once a month or once every 2 months, and after Emma's 15th birthday, she started acting strangely. Although she used to visit me almost every day right after I was hospitalized, she became distant after her 15th birthday. However, neither George nor I could figure out why, and we were puzzled. Even when we asked Emma, she just said, "Don't worry about it." However, we ended up learning the reason from John, who rarely showed up. Hey, it's been a while. Yeah, it has. John, who had completely transformed into a flashy appearance, walked in without even knocking. After not seeing him for a month, John just thrust a divorce lawyer's business card at me without even asking, "Are you okay?" or "How are you feeling divorcing a wife who doesn't work? Pay me $1,000 a month as alimony. That's the deal. So take care," John said, grinning from ear to ear. Beside him, Emily wrapped her arms around John's with a similar expression on her face. "Fine, let's divorce then," I casually agreed, which seemed to surprise John for a moment. But he quickly exchanged smiles with Emily. It was good that John wasn't the type to think too deeply. That's why my plan worked so well. After receiving a notification that the divorce was finalized from John, I decided to start my revenge plan against the 2 of them. I will make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. I promptly started to take action. First, I contacted George to transfer hospitals. Then I informed my lawyer that they would be mediating between the two parties from now on. George also began to act at the same time. He moved near my new hospital with Emma, and he started to visit me frequently. Emma still had a gloomy expression, but I was happy that she came to see me every day. Most of my belongings were already in the hospital room. So I told John to dispose of the rest. I didn't want to bring anything that the two of them might have touched into my new life. Once the hospital transfer and George and Emma's move settled down, I received a call from John. I had only left my seat for a few minutes, but my smartphone already showed 30 missed calls. I answered the phone, feeling exasperated. What? Hey, what the hell is going on? I could hear the voice of a troubled real estate agent behind John's panicked voice. I also heard Emily yelling, which made me feel sick. What do you mean? What's going on? It's obviously about the house. Why do we have to move out? John shouted at me as if it wasn't his fault at all. I replied to him coolly, obviously because that's my house. Huh. John seemed to have completely forgotten. But the truth was the house we lived in was a room I rented as a workspace. When I started to make a living as a freelancer, at that time, I didn't have enough income to maintain 2 houses, and John didn't have enough income to live alone. So he ended up moving into my place. Therefore, Jan had never paid the rent or utility bills for that room. Although I received some money from him for living expenses, it wasn't enough to maintain the place. Unfortunately, that room was already canceled. It was far from the hospital I transferred to, so I had processed the cancellation the day after submitting the divorce papers. I didn't inform him because the real estate agent who knew the situation said they would contact him. George and Emma suddenly disappeared, and our house was sold. What are we going to do about our new house? I don't know. Maybe stay in a business hotel for now. As I turned on the speaker and started working, John yelled in frustration, "Don't screw with me." However, he seemed to remember something and started speaking in a more soothing tone. Well, whatever. When will you transfer the money? We're running low on cash. What are you talking about? Huh? Don't mess around. I told you to pay $1,000, didn't I? Oh, I don't recall agreeing to that. My nonchalant response was met with incoherent screaming from John on the other end of the phone. Apparently, he thought he could get money from me and had been squandering it. Even if he had $1,000 left, how did he plan to get by for the rest of the month? Hey, don't just stay silent. Say something. There's really nothing to talk about. My retort left John momentarily dumbfounded, but he soon started yelling again, growing increasingly annoyed. I addressed John in as cheerful a tone as I could muster. Anyway, we're basically strangers now, so please don't contact me anymore. You'll hear from my lawyer. Huh? Lawyer? Hey, wait a minute. I hung up without listening to John's response. He tried calling back several times, but I ignored it, and eventually the calls stopped. However, angry that I didn't answer, John started ignoring calls from my lawyer. He certainly had a childish side, but I never imagined he'd be the kind of person who didn't mind causing trouble for others. I sighed deeply at John's selfishness. A few months later, after a temporary discharge from the hospital, I visited John's parents' house. In front of me were John and Emily, both looking small and trembling. You telling my parents is a low blow. Oh, I just reported that we got divorced. Jan glared at me in response to my answer, but he shrank back under his father's stern gaze. Actually, I had a great relationship with my in-laws, even visiting and dining with them when John wasn't around. Despite being so well loved, I felt it was wrong not to share the details of our divorce. So I went to visit them. Is it true that you're remarrying Emily? Yes, it's true. True. Emily, Emma, and are going to start over as a family. What are you talking about? Your only family is Sarah. She's not my family anymore. John's words made his father frown with a look that seemed to say, "Give me a break." John shook his head a few times, then handed me a piece of paper. It was a bill from a nearby luxury hotel. What's this? It's the bill from the hotel we stayed at. John, acting as if it was obvious, pointed at the bill on the table, then suddenly collapsed. "Oh, what the heck, Mom? I didn't raise you to be like this." My mother-in-law, gasping for breath, was met with a look of disbelief from John. Next to him, Emily wore the same expression. "Why are you so angry? It's just that the family is changing because I'm getting married. Plus, you'll have a grandchild, a blood-related one at that. Aren't you happy? You two didn't." My mother-in-law, looking as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing, glanced at Emily, then turned her gaze to me. Both my in-laws understood that I didn't want children and still treated me as their own daughter. Of course, they treated Emily, my childhood friend, similarly. But there was always a boundary between a daughter-in-law and a friend. I remembered Emily often complaining about that. So I was certain my mother-in-law wouldn't be happy about this situation, and Emily should have known it too. "You dote on Emma, right? It'll be your grandchild, so you'll be happy, right? It's because she's a child I've known since she was little. Oh, but half of her blood is from John, right?" Even after all this, Emily, showing no sign of remorse and acting as if she couldn't understand the problem, gave me goosebumps. At that moment, someone who had been silent until now spoke up. "Enough already. It's disgusting, huh?" Emma, who had been playing with her smartphone in the corner of the room, spoke to Emily without looking up. The room fell into a stunned silence. My dad is the only one I consider my father, whether we're related by blood or not. He's the only one. But you know, John has always been the one to attend your school events. I heard everything from Dad, how he was always informed of the event dates after they were over, how eventually even the events themselves were kept from him. But Dad always said I was his daughter, so I am his daughter, and I will never be yours. Emma glared at Emily as she said this. Then, sitting beside me, she switched to a more concerned tone. "You know, when I found out about this, I thought you would hate me. But Dad said that wasn't the case, so I came here today. Emma, I love you so much. You were so kind to visit me every day while I was in the hospital. I was really happy, Sarah." Emma, perhaps relieved of her anxiety, teared up and hugged me tightly. It might indeed be a child resulting from an affair between John and Emily. Yet it's a child I've taken care of for 15 years. There's no way I don't have affection for her. Speaking of which, Emily, weren't you curious why I wasn't surprised when I found out Emma is John's daughter? Ah, Emily looked startled. Before she could speak, a new person entered the room. We knew from the start, 10 years ago actually. George suddenly appeared. Understandably so, as she had recently unilaterally demanded a divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. I was shocked when you mentioned divorce. Oh, and unfortunately, you're not divorced yet. The divorce papers are still here. Didn't you notice? What? I figured it wasn't in Emily and John's nature to confirm things. But I couldn't help but be stunned that Emily, despite the 100-day waiting period for women to remarry, hadn't noticed for months. So, Emily is still my wife, and Emma is still my daughter. Well, since there won't be a wife though. Wait, what do you mean? A 15-year-old can choose their parent. That's not true. Emma wants to be with Mom, right? Emily said that and looked at Emma. Emma frowned at Emily and held my hand. Emily was speechless at that and glared at me. Then, John suddenly burst into laughter. So that's what it is. You two are together, huh? But too bad. Isn't it impossible to live on George's salary alone? Can you stop making weird assumptions? Also, it seems George earns double the amount you think. Emily knows about it, huh? It's probably a bluff. A lol. Besides, it's impossible for you to work while dealing with your illness. You'll just die miserably somewhere. This time, I laughed at John's huge misunderstanding. John, seeing me suddenly start laughing, was getting frustrated. You didn't know about my income, did you, huh? It's probably just a bit more than a part-time job. No, it's different. My annual income is $500,000, huh? John's eyes and mouth were wide open in shock. Emily was also stunned. In fact, over the past 10 years, I had become a popular children's book author, and my income had skyrocketed from essays, interviews, and the like. Moreover, a film adaptation is planned soon, so my income is skyrocketing. Liar. Oh, do you want to see this? I said that and showed Emily my bank account screen. It clearly showed a large amount of money being deposited every month. Emily was at a loss for words when she saw it. Sarah, let's make up, huh? What are you saying? Emily was furious at John's words. Blinded by the money, I watched them blankly and then opened my mouth. Well, if you want to get married, feel free. Oh, and I'll definitely take the compensation for damages, Sarah. Wait, Sarah. Ignoring John's words, I took Emma's hand, and after saying goodbye to my in-laws, I left their house. John originally worked at my father-in-law's company, but it was revealed that he was lying about going out for sales, and he was fired. My father-in-law planned to forcibly put him on a friend's fishing boat and work him to the bone. Working on a fishing boat was tough for an indoor-loving John, and he contacted me several times. But each time, I notified my father-in-law, and eventually, the calls stopped. Emily lost custody to George and got divorced. She seemed uninterested in John, who couldn't afford luxuries and didn't seem to chase after him. She was disowned by her family and lived alone in a rundown apartment. She hadn't worked at all since getting married, and since she had always made others do things for her, she couldn't do anything herself. And there were hardly any places that would hire her as a full-time employee. Still, she had to pay for her living expenses and child support, so she worked multiple part-time jobs and barely made ends meet. After entering high school, Emma worked hard every day to study abroad and go to a prestigious university overseas. Being originally diligent, her dream is to translate my picture books and deliver them to children all over the world, which makes me happy. As for me, my picture books are selling well, and I am receiving more and more offers for anime adaptations and merchandise. My illness is also progressing well, and although I am still hospitalized, my doctor recently told me that I might be able to leave the hospital next year. And one more thing, George and Emma come to visit me every day. Actually, George recently confessed to me with remarriage in mind. I haven't given my answer yet, but I can't help but have feelings for him. He said he wants to live together when I leave the hospital. While thinking about what to answer, I work on my picture books every day, hoping for a happy future for us. I weave stories again today.
I've been sleeping with your best friend. Asher's words cut through me like a knife, shattering the illusion of our perfect life together. I stare at him, my heart pounding in my chest as the weight of his confession settles over me. 5 years of marriage, countless memories, and a friendship I cherished above all else, all tainted by this single moment of betrayal. Natalie, my closest confidant, the person I trusted with my deepest secrets, had been lying to me for God knows how long. Asher's face is a mask of cold indifference as he watches me process his words. I want a divorce, Evelyn. It's over. Anger, hot and fierce, surges through my veins. How could you do this to me? To us? We had a life together, Asher. We had plans, dreams. He scoffs, shaking his head. Plans, dreams. You've been so focused on your career, Evelyn, that you've forgotten what it means to be a wife. I needed more than a roommate who occasionally shares my bed. His words sting, but I refuse to let him see how deeply they cut. And Natalie? How long has this been going on behind my back? Asher has the decency to look away, a flicker of shame crossing his features. A year. It started as a friendship, but it grew into something more. Something real. I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound that echoes in the stillness of our living room. Real? You call sneaking around, lying to your wife, and betraying your vows real? What about our marriage, Asher? Was that not real enough for you? He sighs, running a hand through his hair. I didn't plan for this to happen, Evelyn. But Natalie, she understands me in a way you never could. She supports my dreams, my ambitions. She doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more out of life. And that's worth throwing away everything we've built together? Our home, our future? I can feel the hot sting of tears behind my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to let him see me crumble. Asher looks at me, his expression a mix of pity and resignation. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but I can't live a lie anymore. I want a divorce, and I'm going to start a new life with Natalie. The finality in his words hits me like a physical blow. In an instant, my world has been turned upside down. Everything I thought I knew revealed as nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. As Asher turns to leave, I call out, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. This isn't over, Asher. I won't let you walk away from our marriage without a fight. You and Natalie will pay for what you've done. He pauses, his hand on the doorknob, and looks back at me. Do what you need to do, Evelyn, but it won't change the fact that I've made my choice. I'm sorry it had to end this way. With that, he's gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. I sink to the floor, my legs no longer able to support me, as the tears I've been holding back finally break free. In the silence of our once shared home, I make a vow to myself. I will uncover the truth behind their betrayal, and I will make them regret the day they chose to deceive me. I confront Asher, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. You blame me for your infidelity? How dare you, Asher? We both had demanding careers, but I never once considered betraying our vows. Asher's eyes narrow, his voice dripping with condescension. You were always too busy, Evelyn, too focused on your own success to notice that our marriage was crumbling. Natalie was there for me when you weren't. I supported your career, your ambitions. We made decisions together, Asher. We agreed to wait on starting a family until we were both ready. My voice rises, frustration and hurt bleeding into every word. A cruel smile plays on Asher's lips. Well, I'm ready now. Natalie's pregnant, and I'm going to marry her. We're going to have the family I always wanted, the family you were too selfish to give me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing the air from my lungs. Pregnant? You got her pregnant while we were still married? How could you be so reckless, so irresponsible? Asher shrugs, his indifference a sharp contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. It happened, Evelyn, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Natalie and I are building a future together, and I won't let you stand in our way. I clench my fists, my nails digging into my palms. You're a liar and a cheat, Asher. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. And for what? A woman who was willing to sleep with her best friend's husband? What kind of future can you possibly hope to build on a foundation of deceit? He steps closer, his eyes cold and unfeeling. The kind of future I deserve, Evelyn. One where I'm not constantly being held back by a wife who can't see beyond her own ambitions. Natalie understands me, supports me in ways you never could. And you think that justifies your actions? You think that gives you the right to destroy our marriage, to shatter the trust I placed in you? My voice cracks, the weight of his betrayal threatening to crush me. Asher's face hardens, his words laced with venom. I'm done living a lie, Evelyn. I'm done pretending to be happy in a marriage that's been dead for years. You can have your divorce, but don't expect me to go down without a fight. I'll make sure you regret ever trying to stand in the way of my happiness. Happiness? I laugh, a bitter, broken sound. You think you'll find happiness with a woman who betrays her best friend? You're delusional, Asher, and I promise you this. I will uncover every lie, every secret, every dirty little detail of your affair. I'll make sure the world sees you for the monster you really are. He smirks, unfazed by my threats. Do your worst, Evelyn. But remember, I'm not the only one with secrets. You're not as perfect as you'd like everyone to believe. With that, he turns and walks away, leaving me standing alone in the ruins of our once happy life. I watch him go, my heart hardening with each step he takes. I will not let him win. I will not let him destroy me. I will fight back with every ounce of strength I possess, and I will make sure he pays for his betrayal. As I stand there, the pieces of my shattered world littering the ground at my feet, I make a silent vow to myself. I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. I will expose Asher and Natalie for the liars they are, and I will rebuild my life on my own terms. The price of their deception will be high, and I will make sure they pay it in full. I sit across from the private investigator, his face a mask of professional detachment, as he slides a manila envelope across the table. This is what I've managed to uncover so far, Mrs. Callahan. It seems your husband has been quite generous with his mistress. I open the envelope with trembling hands, my eyes widening as I flip through the photographs and financial statements. Asher, my loving husband, had been funneling money into Natalie's bank account for months, paying for her rent, her art supplies, her lavish lifestyle. "How long has this been going on?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. The investigator leans back in his chair, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and understanding. "From what I can tell, the payment started about 6 months ago, right around the time your husband started spending more late nights at the office." I nod, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Asher's sudden distance, his increasingly cold demeanor, all signs I had foolishly ignored in my desire to believe in the sanctity of our marriage. "Thank you," I say, sliding the envelope back across the table. "I appreciate your discretion in this matter." He nods, rising from his seat. "Of course, Mrs. Callahan. If there's anything else I can do to assist you, please don't hesitate to call." I leave the investigator's office, my mind reeling with the evidence of Asher's betrayal. But I know confronting him directly will only lead to more lies, more denials. No, I need to go straight to the source. I need to speak with Natalie. I find her at her studio, her once vibrant paintings now twisted and dark, reflecting the turmoil of her own guilty conscience. She looks up as I enter, her eyes widening in surprise and fear. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" she asks, her voice trembling. I hold up the envelope, my eyes hard and unforgiving. "I know about the money, Natalie. I know Asher's been supporting you, paying for your life while he was still married to me." She pales, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. I can't explain, Evelyn. It's not what you think." "Really?" I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound, because it looks like my husband has been having an affair with my best friend, all while lying to my face and pretending to be the perfect devoted spouse. Natalie's eyes fill with tears, her voice breaking as she speaks. "He promised me, Evelyn. He said he was going to leave you, that we were going to start a life together. He said he loved me." I shake my head, my heart hardening with each word she speaks. "And you believed him? You thought he would actually leave his wife, his successful career, for a struggling artist who can't even support herself?" She flinches at my words, her shoulders sagging in defeat. "I know it was wrong, Evelyn. I never meant to hurt you. But Asher, he made me feel special, wanted. He said he needed me in ways you could never understand." "Needed you?" I scoff, my anger rising with each passing moment. "He needed a mistress, Natalie, someone to stroke his ego and make him feel like a man, but he never intended to leave me. He never intended to start a family with you." Her eyes widen, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. "But the baby, he said he wanted this child, that we were going to be a family." I laugh, a sound devoid of any humor. "Asher doesn't want children, Natalie. He made that clear to me from the start. He only wants what he can't have, and once he gets it, he loses interest. You're nothing more than a conquest to him, a way to prove his own virility." She crumples then, her sobs echoing off the walls of the studio. I watch her, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction in her pain. She brought this upon herself, and now she must face the consequences. "I hope it was worth it, Natalie," I say, my voice cold and unfeeling. "I hope the price of your betrayal was worth the momentary thrill of being Asher's mistress. Because now, you'll have to live with the knowledge that you destroyed our friendship, our trust, for a man who never truly loved you." With that, I turn and walk away, leaving her to drown in her own tears and regrets. I have the evidence I need, the proof of Asher's lies and deceit, and I will use it to make sure he pays for every moment of pain he has caused me. I step into the sleek, modern office of Liam Hastings, the renowned divorce attorney known for his ruthless tactics and unparalleled success rate. He rises from behind his desk, his hand outstretched in greeting. "Mrs. Callahan, a pleasure to meet you," he says, his voice smooth and confident. "I've heard great things about your work as a lawyer. It's a shame we're meeting under such unfortunate circumstances." I take his hand, my grip firm and unyielding. "Please, call me Evelyn, and thank you for agreeing to take on my case. I need someone who isn't afraid to play hardball." Liam smiles, a glint of something dangerous in his eyes. "I assure you, Evelyn, I'm not in the business of playing nice. When my clients come to me, they expect results, and I deliver." We sit and I slide the manila envelope across his desk. This is what my private investigator uncovered. Proof of my husband's infidelity and financial support of his mistress. Liam flips through the documents, his brow furrowed in concentration. This is good, Evelyn. Very good. With this evidence, we can paint a picture of a man who not only betrayed his marriage vows, but also his financial responsibilities. I nod, my heart racing with the thrill of impending revenge. There's more. I've uncovered evidence that Asher has been embezzling funds from our joint accounts, funneling the money into Natalie's bank account. Liam's eyes widen, a slow smile spreading across his face. Embezzlement? Oh, this is going to be fun. We'll nail him to the wall, Evelyn. He won't know what hit him. We spend the next few hours poring over the evidence, strategizing our next moves. Liam is brilliant, his mind working in ways I never could have imagined. He sees angles I never considered, finds loopholes and technicalities that will work in our favor. As we work, I find myself drawn to him, to his intensity and his passion for justice. He understands the pain of betrayal, the anger that comes with being wronged by someone you trusted, and in that understanding I find a kindred spirit. You know, Evelyn, he says, leaning back in his chair, I've seen a lot of cases like yours over the years. Spouses who cheat, who lie, who think they can get away with anything. But you're different. You're a fighter. You're not going to let him win. I smile, feeling a warmth spread through my chest at his words. Damn right, I'm not. Asher thinks he can just walk away, start a new life with his mistress, and leave me to pick up the pieces. But he has no idea what's coming for him. Liam reaches across the desk, his hand covering mine. We'll make him pay, Evelyn. Together. He'll regret the day he ever thought he could betray you and get away with it. I look into his eyes, seeing the fire and determination that mirrors my own. In that moment, I know I've found more than just a lawyer. I've found a partner, someone who will stand by my side and fight for what's right. Let's do this, I say, my voice steady and strong. Let's take him down. Liam grins, a wicked gleam in his eye. With pleasure, Evelyn, with pleasure. As we continue to work, the hours ticking by in a blur of strategy and planning, I feel a sense of power coursing through my veins. Asher thought he could break me, thought he could shatter my world and leave me helpless. But he underestimated me. He underestimated the depths of my rage, the strength of my resolve. And now, with Liam by my side, I will make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment of pain he has inflicted upon me. The price of his deception will be high, and I will collect every penny. I stand before Asher, my eyes blazing with the fury of 1,000 suns. In my hands, I clutch the evidence of his deceit. It's the proof of his betrayal. He looks at me, his face a mask of arrogance and disdain. What do you want, Evelyn? He sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. I thought I made myself clear. We're done. I'm starting a new life with Natalie. I laugh, a cold, mirthless sound that echoes through the room. Oh, you're done, all right, Asher, but not in the way you think. I toss the papers onto the table between us, watching as his eyes widen in recognition. You thought you could hide your lies, your embezzlement, your sordid little affair, but you were wrong. I have proof of everything, Asher, every penny you stole, every promise you broke. He reaches for the papers, his hands trembling. This is nonsense, Evelyn. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I smirk, reveling in his discomfort. I have bank statements, credit card receipts, emails, and text messages. I have a private investigator who has been tracking your every move, and I have a team of lawyers who are ready to take you down. Asher's face pales, his bravado crumbling before my eyes. What do you want, Evelyn? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want, just don't do this. I lean forward, my eyes locked on his. What I want, Asher, is justice. I want you to pay for what you've done, for the pain you've caused. I want you to suffer, just like I have suffered. He shakes his head, his voice desperate. Please, Evelyn, think about what you're doing. Think about our marriage, our life together. Our marriage? I scoff, my anger rising with each passing second. You destroyed our marriage the moment you decided to stick your dick in my best friend. You threw away our life together the moment you chose her over me. Asher's eyes narrow, his voice growing cold. You're making a mistake, Evelyn. If you go through with this, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll drag your name through the mud. I'll make sure everyone knows what a vindictive bitch you really are. I laugh, a sound full of bitter triumph. Go ahead, Asher. Do your worst. But know this. I have the truth on my side. I have the evidence of your lies and your betrayal. and I will use it to destroy you just like you destroyed me. He stares at me, his eyes full of hatred and fear. You'll never win, Evelyn. I'll fight you every step of the way. I smile, a cold, cruel twist of my lips. Bring it on, Asher. I'm ready for war. With that, I turn and walk away, my head held high. I feel a sense of power coursing through my veins, a sense of purpose that I haven't felt in years. Asher thought he could break me, thought he could shatter my world and leave me helpless. But he was wrong. I am stronger than he ever imagined, and I will not rest until he has paid for his crimes. I will not rest until he has felt the full of my vengeance. As I step out into the bright sunlight, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. I have a long road ahead of me, a battle that will test me in ways I never imagined. But I am ready. I am ready to fight, to claw my way back from the brink of despair and emerge victorious. Asher and Natalie may have started this war, but I will be the one to finish it. And when the dust settles, they will know the true price of their deception. The shrill ring of my phone pierces the silence of my apartment. I glance at the screen, my heart skipping a beat as I see Natalie's name flashing across the display. I hesitate for a moment, wondering what fresh hell she has in store for me, before answering with a curt, "What do you want?" "Evelyn, please," she sobs, her voice thick with tears. "I need your help. The baby, she's not Asher's." I feel a rush of vindictive pleasure at her words, a sense of poetic justice that leaves me breathless. Well, I purr, my voice dripping with malice. "It seems the tables have turned, haven't they, Natalie?" She's quiet for a moment, her sniffles the only sound on the line. "I know I don't deserve your help, Evelyn. I know what I did was unforgivable, but please, I have nowhere else to turn. Asher, he abandoned us. He said he wants nothing to do with me or the baby." I lean back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. "And why should I help you, Natalie? After everything you've done, after all the pain you've caused, why should I lift a finger to help you?" "Because I have information," she whispers, her voice trembling. "Information that could help you destroy Asher. I'll tell you everything, Evelyn. Every dirty secret, every lie he's ever told. Just please, help me. Help my baby." I'm silent for a long moment, weighing my options. On the one hand, the thought of helping Natalie, of showing her even an ounce of mercy, makes my stomach churn with disgust. But on the other hand, the promise of more ammunition against Asher, of more weapons to use in my war against him, is too tempting to resist. "Fine," I say, my voice cold and hard. "I'll help you, Natalie, but not for you, for your child, and in exchange you'll give me everything you have on Asher, every last scrap of dirt, every skeleton in his closet. Do we have a deal?" She's quiet for a moment, her breathing ragged. "Yes," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "We have a deal." I hang up the phone, my mind racing with the possibilities. With Natalie's testimony, with the evidence she can provide, I can bring Asher to his knees. I can make him pay for every moment of pain he's caused, every lie he's ever told. But first, I need to make sure Natalie holds up her end of the bargain. I need to make sure she's truly on my side, that she's not just using me for her own gain. I pick up the phone again, dialing Liam's number. He answers on the first ring, his voice warm and comforting. "Evelyn, what's up?" "Natalie called," I say, my voice steady and strong. "She wants my help. Says the baby isn't Asher's and he's abandoned them." Liam is quiet for a moment, his mind working through the implications. "This could be big, Evelyn. If Natalie's telling the truth, if she has evidence against Asher, it could be the final nail in his coffin." "I know," I say, my heart racing with the thrill of impending victory. "But I need to make sure she's not playing me. I need to make sure she's truly on our side." "Leave that to me," Liam says, his voice full of confidence. "I'll dig into her background, make sure she's not hiding anything, and if she is, we'll use it against her. We'll make sure she has no choice but to cooperate." I smile, feeling a rush of gratitude for Liam's unwavering support. "Thank you, Liam. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," he says, his voice soft and tender. "I'm here for you, Evelyn, always." As I hang up the phone, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. With Natalie's testimony, with Liam by my side, I can finally bring Asher to justice. I can finally make him pay for every moment of pain he's caused. And when the dust settles, when the war is won, I will emerge victorious. I will emerge stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. Liam and I sit side by side, poring over the evidence we've gathered against Asher. Bank statements, phone records, emails, and texts, all painting a picture of a man consumed by his own greed and selfishness. "This is good, Evelyn," Liam says, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "With Natalie's testimony and the evidence we've uncovered, we can bring Asher down. We can expose him for the fraud he really is." I nod, my heart racing with the thrill of impending victory. "I want to see him suffer, Liam. I want to see him lose everything, just like he made me lose everything." Liam takes my hand, his touch warm and comforting. "We'll make sure he pays, Evelyn. We'll make sure he never hurts anyone else ever again." We work tirelessly, building our case against Asher. We reach out to his colleagues, his patients, anyone who might have information about his unethical behavior. And with each new piece of evidence, each new testimony, our case grows stronger. Finally, the day of reckoning arrives. We stand before the medical board, our evidence laid out in damning detail. Asher sits across from us, his face pale and drawn, his eyes filled with fear. "Dr. Asher Callahan," the board chairman begins, his voice grave. "The evidence against you is overwhelming. You have violated the trust of your patients, your colleagues, and your profession. You have engaged in unethical behavior, financial misconduct, and adultery. What do you have to say for yourself?" Asher opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. He looks at me, his eyes pleading for mercy, but I have none to give. "You destroyed my life, Asher," I say, my voice cold and hard. "You betrayed me, lied to me, and made me question everything I ever believed in. And now, you will pay the price for your actions." The board deliberates for only a few minutes before reaching their decision. "Dr. Asher Callahan," the chairman says, his voice ringing with finality. "It is the decision of this board to revoke your medical license, effective immediately. You are hereby barred from practicing medicine in the state of New York, and your name will be added to the National Registry of Disciplined Physicians. May God have mercy on your soul." Asher crumples in his seat, his face buried in his hands. I feel a rush of triumph, a sense of vindication that leaves me breathless. I have won. I have destroyed the man who destroyed me. As we leave the hearing, Liam takes my hand, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Evelyn. You brought him to justice." I nod, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You've been my rock through all of this." He smiles, his hand tightening around mine. "I'll always be here for you, Evelyn, no matter what." We walk out into the bright sunlight, ready to face the world together. Natalie is waiting for us, her baby cradled in her arms. She looks at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Evelyn," she says, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for helping me, for giving me a second chance." I nod, feeling a sense of kinship with the woman who was once my enemy. "We all deserve a second chance, Natalie, even you." As we walk away, I feel a sense of hope blooming in my chest. The past few months have been a nightmare, a hell I never thought I'd escape. But now, with Asher's downfall and Liam by my side, I know that anything is possible. I have emerged from the darkness, stronger and more powerful than ever before, and I know that whatever the future holds, I will face it with my head held high, ready to take on the world.
"I've been demoted at work," he announced somberly upon arriving home. "What?" I nearly spilled my tea in shock. His company's recent poor performance and impending restructuring had hinted at potential personnel changes, but I never anticipated it hitting Scott directly. Nevertheless, I felt it was crucial to stand by him during such trying times as his wife. "Well, perhaps it's just a stroke of bad luck. Times are tough, and I'm also working, so let's not fret," I replied, trying to maintain a cheerful demeanor. "I'm Catherine, 50 years old, currently employed full-time in the back office. I reside with my husband Scott, who is 2 years my senior, our high school sophomore daughter Julia, and my 72-year-old mother-in-law Ethel. While Ethel and I may not always see eye to eye, our interactions are limited to when I'm home since I work outside, so I've chosen not to dwell on it. To my daughter, I advised, your dad is feeling a bit down because of the demotion, but let's try to carry on as usual around him." However, Scott began to unload his frustrations, and as the saying goes, people often vent their frustrations on those closest to them, those they trust the most. And unfortunately, I became the recipient of it all. The following day, while cleaning the hallway on my day off, he passed by and suddenly remarked, "You've put on weight since we got married, haven't you?" Huh? Well, I am 50 after all. Even the gynecology pamphlets mention that women tend to gain weight around menopause. But according to my company's health checkup, I'm not overweight, I retorted. Then came his heartless words, "Forget the health checkup. Your figure is too unsightly. You're just being lazy. If you're overweight, I'm embarrassed to be seen with you and your barrel-like figure." His sudden cruelty left me speechless, and as he added, "ugly," before retreating to his room and locking the door, I was left bewildered. What? What's happening all of a sudden? I pinched my own side in disbelief. I can pinch it. When I squeeze it between my thumb and forefinger, it fits snugly, and I can tell that I've gained more than enough. But why now all of a sudden? It felt like an arrow had pierced me unexpectedly, the shock so intense that I even forgot I was holding the magician wiper in my hand, which then slipped and clattered loudly to the hallway floor. From that day onward, Scott's treatment of me grew increasingly harsh. To exacerbate matters, my mother-in-law seemed to have overheard the argument from that weekend and decided to intervene. Then tensions escalated further. As I ascended the stairs with a basket of laundry intending to hang the clothes, my mother-in-law awaited me not at the bottom, but at the top of the stairs. She would make remarks like, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here because your obesity restricts the space for both of us." Moreover, during dinner when I served fried chicken, she'd comment, "Isn't this what's contributing to your weight gain?" and promptly remove my plate. Instead, she'd suggest that only the three of us who weren't overweight should eat. My gynecologist had mentioned that after middle age, one tends to either gain weight or lose it, yet my mother-in-law remained on the thin side. She was as slim as a dried-up tree, but I managed to tolerate her incessant taunts. Such annoyances had become routine, so I had grown somewhat accustomed to them. What truly wounded me, however, was my husband's behavior. Since that incident, Scott ceased speaking to me. There were no expressions of gratitude or compliments, not even when I served him breakfast. He simply ate in silence and then left the table. He would enter and exit the bathroom without uttering a word. Though we still shared the bedroom, he would merely turn his back to me and immerse himself in his smartphone. I couldn't bear being treated as though I were invisible. One night, summoning my courage in the bedroom, I asked, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was cold. "Not really, but I prefer not to engage with anyone other than humans." He continued, "I don't want to be associated with a family member who is this overweight. If you truly care about me, you'll shed some pounds." What? His words left me disheartened. But it's inevitable with age, you understand that, don't you? Even though I walk 1.2 miles for my commute, I'm doing my best in my own way. Despite my efforts to combat the weight gain that often comes with aging, he coldly turned his back, dismissing my struggles. "If you're not seeing results, then it's as if you're not trying at all. Don't speak to me anymore." And with that, he truly stopped acknowledging my presence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law persisted in taunting me about my weight. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice were served, she'd question, "Are you permitted to eat that? Do you realize?" Eventually, I found myself restricted to salads and boiled vegetables. Scott remained silent throughout, merely moving his chopsticks without a word. It seemed my marriage was nearing its end. During my spare moments, I began packing my belongings. If this was the treatment I would receive from Scott, perhaps it was best to disappear altogether. When I confided in my daughter, saying I'm considering moving back to my parents' house, she sympathized. "I understand. I witnessed Grandma and Dad always picking on you during meals. It's painful to watch. I'll come with you, Mom. We can stay with your parents and I can still attend high school from there." And now, tomorrow marks the beginning of the demotion I've been anticipating, right after the winter break. Scott approached with a smile, suggesting, "Let's all have a drink, just this once." Tomorrow, life without subordinates begins for him. I pondered whether he found this situation unbearable. However, by now, I had lost the will to play along. Even his forced smile grated on my nerves. Scott piped up, Let's enjoy a nightcap with dinner. I'll whip up some wine spritzers. It might have been the first time he had directly addressed me since the demotion announcement. He continued, Julia can have juice, and I'll fix you a wine spritzer too, Catherine. He then placed the prepared drinks at 3 spots on the table. Odd, why the sudden change? As Scott momentarily turned his back to search for the TV remote, I discreetly sniffed the drink he had poured. What? I detected a faint scent, unmistakably familiar. I knew it from my own culinary endeavors. How could he even think to serve me this? I refused to tolerate it any longer. Between my mother-in-law's constant harassment and my husband's neglect, I had reached my limit. The sight of the wine spritzer pushed me over the edge. Scott, could you please grab the camembert cheese from the fridge? It's from the local dairy farm, and it's absolutely delicious. I'm grateful for this family time. Would you mind fetching it? I requested, hoping he would contribute at least this much to our moment of togetherness. As Scott made his way to the fridge, I took the opportunity to swap my drink with the one on the seat to my right. It was F.O.'s seat. Upon his return with the cheese, I announced, now that we have our snacks ready, I'll go fetch Julia and mother-in-law, loud enough for them to hear. Dinner's served. The two of them joined us in the dining room and took their seats, creating an appearance of a typical family dinner. Except, I didn't have any meatloaf or cornbread salad. Instead, we had stewed chicken soup, camembert cheese, and wine spritzers. Julia opted for juice. Let's dig in, Julia broke the silence, while Scott and my mother-in-law remained silent. I took a sip of the wine spritzer Scott had prepared, noticing him watching me closely. With a smile, I remarked, yeah, it's quite good. Huh? Scott muttered something under his breath, but I chose to ignore him. Instead, I focused on my salad before taking another sip of the wine spritzer. Suddenly, a stream of red liquid shot out from my mother-in-law's mouth, resembling Godzilla's fiery breath. Wait, Grandma, what happened? My daughter exclaimed, rising from her seat in surprise. Some of the liquid splattered onto her salad. Did you choke? Are you okay? Julia quickly fetched a towel and returned, offering it to my mother-in-law, who wiped her mouth. However, her reaction was one of disbelief. What? What is this? Grandma, your mouth, it looks like spicy cod roe, my daughter observed, growing increasingly concerned. Hey you! He put it in my drink. My mother-in-law shrieked, attempting to grab me, but I coldly brushed her hand away. It wasn't me, Scott made it, I stated firmly. This dismissal, coupled with the revelation of Scott's involvement, seemed to stun her. What? My mother-in-law screamed, her lips still stained with sauce, before turning to glare at Scott, who was visibly trembling. Leaning towards him, I exerted some pressure by resting my hand on the table. You thought you could sneak it into the wine spritzer, didn't you? I could detect it slightly because I've encountered it before. That was a dash of hell, wasn't it? I confronted him sternly. A drop of hell? I picked it up at the food fair in Alabama. It might not be as renowned as death sauce, but with its subtle lime undertones, I found it more appealing for its homely flavor, I explained. That hint of lime was what I detected, indicating he had added a significant amount to the drink. My mother-in-law likely didn't notice due to the wine spritzer's aroma, or perhaps she mistook the lime scent for part of the drink's flavor. Regardless, this was an exceptionally malicious prank, incredibly vicious. Wait, Dad did that? Julia's expression was one of disbelief. I actually intended for Catherine to have it, Scott admitted. You should switch it with yours. Even if my mother-in-law is foaming at the mouth, it's out of line. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me. I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I asserted in a hushed tone, maintaining pressure on Scott. And then I confronted him. Explain why on earth you thought pulling such a stunt was acceptable, I recounted. You were putting on weight, and spicy food can boost metabolism. So I figured I'd give it a try, Scott reasoned. Pathetic. What a lame excuse, I scoffed. Did he truly believe such an explanation would suffice? It was utterly embarrassing. Under pressure, my husband hesitated, shifting his chair back slightly. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste. I made it for you, he urged. Closing in, I saw him retreat. What are you implying? As the one who prepared it, you should be the one to sample it. Come on. Rising from my seat, I grabbed the cup containing the fiery concoction meant for my mother-in-law and tossed it in front of my husband. Setting it aside, I closed the gap once more. After ignoring me and treating me like I'm invisible for so long, did you honestly expect me to drink something you claim to make with a smile out of the blue? Did that not occur to you in your empty head? Isn't it all too childish? Come on, taste it as the one who brewed it. Take some responsibility, I asserted, slamming the table. At the sound, my husband, perhaps hoping to evade further confrontation, rose from his chair and stepped back. Amidst the tense silence, a soft voice broke through. Both my husband and I turned to the source. It was our daughter, Julia. She began to speak, her words sounding strained as if she were forcing them out. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and subjecting her to repeated cruel treatment. It's like a childish prank. I might not be supposed to say this to my parents, but it's too immature and unbearable to witness. Our daughter stood up, addressing her father directly. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her own lunch. So it's not fair to say she's not making an effort, she continued, turning to face her grandmother. And you going along with it, taking away Mom's dinner like the fried chicken incident. What Grandma is doing is reminiscent of high school drama. It's embarrassing, she remarked firmly. At these words, a flustered Ethel began to offer a confused excuse. That's not it. I'm just concerned about Julia's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel positively about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Ethel, like Julia, is also struggling with weight. But Julia remained resolute. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It pained me to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she looked so upset. That's not compassion. Mom hasn't had any health issues in her checkups, yet taking away her food is just plain mean. Ethel fell silent, and it appeared Julia was finished addressing her for the time being. She turned her attention back to her father. Mom goes to the gynecologist regularly and stays active, yet Dad just brushes her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? His indifference creates such tension in the house. Can't you see it? Even Colonel Sanders and Aunt Stella from the cookie ads are on the plump side. Ever heard of happy weight? If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Stella as she gets older, I'd be overjoyed. When I have kids and she's a grandma, wouldn't it be wonderful to say, Mom, you've reached some happy weight, and share a laugh? That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, she stated matter-of-factly, her gaze icy. Despite their blunt delivery, her words warmed my heart like hot milk with cookies. It was pitiful to witness a father admonished by his own daughter. And one more thing, she addressed her father directly. If you're going to disregard someone because of weight gain from aging, remember, with your receding hairline, you could easily be overlooked yourself. The tension in the room was palpable. Her sharp words left a chill in the air, making the living room feel as cold as ice. It seemed she had said all she needed to. Afterward, she turned to me. That's enough, Mom. It's time to let it go. It'll be better for you. Her words caught me off guard. Let it go? Yes, I should let it go. As I mentioned earlier, my dream is to see you holding my child, saying you've gained some happy weight, and sharing a laugh. For my sake, I want you to be happy because that's part of my dream. So please, let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream. Her words filled my heart with warmth. Each word she spoke brought me such joy that I no longer cared about being ignored by my husband, the fat shaming from my mother-in-law, or the drink incident. Warm tears streamed down my cheeks. Yes, you're right, I agreed, my vision blurred with tears. Come on, Mom, she patted my back gently, urging me forward. Oh, okay, I mumbled as I fetched a document I had been concealing for some time. What? My husband exclaimed, startled. After enduring a month of being ignored, I reached a decision. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I declared, presenting the divorce papers with only my name written on them. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you had slimmed down as I asked, I would have been satisfied. It wasn't until Julia pointed it out that I realized it was venting. But since you didn't shed any pounds, I thought I'd torment you further. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't expect this outcome, my husband confessed, panic creeping into his voice. Those who failed to notice until things escalated are the ones acting incredibly immature, Julia retorted sharply. Living without her beloved granddaughter is no laughing matter for my mother-in-law. Ethel interjected softly, her voice as gentle as stroking a cat. Julia dear, you wouldn't want to keep living with us, your grandmothers. Julia shut down Ethel's plea with a firm refusal. I decline. I no longer wish to share the same space as people who behave like middle schoolers. Wait, okay, hold on. I understand. I'll taste it, as you suggest. I'll take responsibility as the one who prepared it, Scott conceded, picking up the glass before him and downing its contents in one gulp. Scott, much like Ethel earlier, ejects a stream of the red liquid from his mouth, leaving him with a set of lobster-like lips. There, see. I took responsibility, didn't I, Julia? Scott proudly declares. Julia captures a picture of them both with their lobster lips on her phone and remarks, "You both are so ridiculous. Mom, let's go," before swiftly exiting the living room. Yeah, I'll follow her lead, I agree. Left behind is a dinner table splattered here and there with the wine cocktail mixed with a drop of hell, along with a husband and mother-in-law sporting red lobster lips. I return to my parents' house with Julia. Upon explaining the situation at home, both my mother and father are enraged and decide to confront Scott and Ethel. They return with the divorce papers, and I ultimately end up getting divorced. My ex-husband Scott's career hits rock bottom, with no notable achievements in his remaining years. It turns out he had a habit of ignoring issues he disliked, even with his subordinates, which ultimately led to his demotion, a revelation I only recently discovered. Meanwhile, my ex-mother-in-law Ethel, who had been difficult and seldom ventured outside, finds herself in a stalemate within their two-person household. Eventually, I received a call saying, "Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Julia were here." This sentiment is underscored by the 17 years that passed since Julia was born and we lived together. Please come back. I'll stop ignoring you. But I won't be returning. Enjoy indulging while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have more physical work to do, my mother jokes with a smile. That's a good point. Today, like every day, I'm walking to work. Along the way, my boss drives by and stops the car, offering, "Need a ride?" "No, thank you. I'm sticking to my diet." "Just get in, Catherine," he insists. "I found a new boyfriend," I announce proudly. Both of us have experienced divorce, which has strengthened our bond and mutual understanding. Dieting is great and all, but being late would pose a problem, he mentions as he drives. "I've never been late before," I retort, puffing up my cheeks defensively. He glances at me and gently pokes my puffed-up cheek with his finger. "Give me the time you saved by riding in the car today for our conversation," he says with a playful smile, ever the chatty boyfriend.
Mama hasn't eaten and she's collapsed. I received an urgent SOS from my 6-year-old granddaughter, who lives with my daughter and her husband. Her desperate call left me stunned. Mama had shared her own food with me, so she hadn't eaten anything herself. "Grandma, come quick. Help." My granddaughter's message was frantic, saying that my daughter could only moan weakly and seemed barely able to speak. I grabbed my car keys, praying for my daughter's safety, and rushed out of the house. What I found when I arrived was beyond anything I had prepared for. My name is Wendy, and I'm a 65-year-old housewife. Since my husband, who was 5 years older than me, passed away 2 years ago, I've been living alone in our now overly spacious home. Thanks to an inheritance from him and my own savings from working until I turned 60, I have no financial worries. My only daughter, Holly, is married and lives about an hour away with her husband. The highlights of my life are their occasional visits, especially when they bring my granddaughter, Lynn. After Holly graduated from university, she moved to Paris to pursue a career fueled by her passion for the French language. There she met Ted, who was working for an international company. They married and eventually returned to the United States. Once back, Holly chose to become a full-time homemaker to support Ted, and soon after, they welcomed their daughter, Lynn. Ted graduated from a prestigious university and now works for a leading tire company, which gives him an elite status, though he has faced many challenges along the way. His father struggled with job stability, frequently changing positions, which put a strain on their finances. Ted's mother worked part-time but didn't contribute significantly to the household income. Holly mentioned this hesitantly, suggesting that Ted's parents had unconventional approaches to work. Despite this, Ted was determined to improve his circumstances. He pursued his education with dedication, earning scholarships and working part-time to support himself. His hard work has earned him Holly's deep respect. Ted is committed to ensuring that Lynn doesn't face the same struggles he did. He is determined to save money and provide her with the freedom to choose her own path. She described him as a warm-hearted person. While it might seem self-serving to praise my own daughter, Holly truly is bright and kind-hearted. She has a good relationship with Ted, even though his parents are somewhat unconventional. Lynn has been growing up happily, and I had no cause for concern. However, there was a moment when I sensed something was wrong with Holly. It was when Lynn was 4 years old. During one of their visits, Holly appeared unusually drained. I asked, "What's wrong? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell, or is something bothering you?" "Well, there's a small concern," Holly admitted. She had been sending $700 a month to Ted's financially struggling parents, but they had recently asked for more without Ted knowing. It turns out my father-in-law had quit his job again. "That's troubling. It's challenging for just you and Ted to bear this burden," I said. Holly wanted to save money for Lynn's future, but it was becoming difficult with the ongoing financial support for her in-laws. She considered getting a job, but Ted had told her, "I often go on business trips, so I prefer you stay with Lynn. I want to support my parents since they're family, but I'm worried about how long we can sustain this situation." Hearing this, I felt uneasy and somewhat doubtful. I considered how I might assist and shared my idea with Ted. To my surprise, he welcomed the suggestion and agreed without hesitation. I was relieved at the time, but things didn't go as smoothly as hoped. 2 years later, a new issue emerged. Ted was assigned to work abroad, and would be stationed there alone. His parents, concerned about Holly and Lynn managing on their own, proposed that they all move in together. Though Ted wanted to respect Holly's wishes, his parents' insistence made it difficult for her to refuse. Consequently, they decided to live together for the year until Ted's return. Knowing the challenges Holly had faced with her in-laws, I made it a point to stay in regular contact and check on her. "It's okay. My father-in-law's new job seems to have a good environment. It might work out this time, and since Ted helped him find it, that's a positive sign." Despite her reassurance, a mother's intuition, or whatever you might call it, told me that something was off with Holly's tone. Then communication from her abruptly ceased. I tried reaching out multiple times, but all I got were voicemails and no replies. After 6 months of Ted being away, I finally managed to reconnect with Holly. "Hello, Holly. I'm relieved to finally get through. Summer is almost over. How are you doing?" "I'm fine. I was hoping you and Lynn would visit during the summer vacation." "Mom, I'm sorry. We've been really busy. I need to go now. I'll talk to you later." Wait, but before I could say more, the call abruptly ended. Holly's voice had sounded noticeably less upbeat. "What's going on, Holly? I haven't seen you in over 6 months. Are you both really okay?" My anxiety grew, and I realized I couldn't wait any longer. Just then, an unexpected call came through from Holly's phone. "Mom doesn't have any food, and she's collapsed." The distressed voice of my granddaughter, Lynn, came through the line. "Lynn, what's happening?" I asked urgently. "Mom gave her food to me, so she hasn't eaten anything. Grandma, please come help us." From the tearful voice on the phone, I could tell Holly was exhausted and struggling to communicate. "Are there any adults around, like Grandpa or Grandma? If they find out I called, I'll be in trouble," Lynn said. That's when I recalled what Holly had mentioned. She had taught Lynn how to use her cell phone and delete the call history, so Lynn could expose the situation to Holly's in-laws if needed. "Hold on, I'm on my way," I said, telling Lynn to stay somewhere safe. I quickly drove to the in-laws' house, my heart racing. "Holly, I'm coming." As I drove, tears streamed down my face. I was filled with guilt for not realizing the situation sooner and seething with anger toward Holly's in-laws. What have they done to my precious daughter and granddaughter? I'll never forgive them. Fueled by my anger, I pressed the accelerator harder. When I arrived at the in-laws' house, I rang the doorbell, but there was no immediate response. After repeatedly pressing the button, a voice finally answered. "Why are you ringing so much? Who is it?" "I'm Holly's mother." "What? You didn't give any notice. Why are you here?" It was clear Holly's father-in-law was surprised and hesitant to come to the door. I'm sorry for the unexpected visit, but I need to see Holly. May I come in? No. Holly and Lynn aren't here. Go home. I know they're here. Is there another reason you're not letting me in? Enough. Don't come back. Just then, a deep voice resonated from behind me. Before I could react, a man appeared in front of me. That voice, could it be? I heard sounds of movement from inside the house, and the front door opened to reveal a stunned father-in-law. Boss, what are you doing here? The man was the CEO of the company where Holly's father-in-law worked. After learning about the in-laws' financial demands from Holly, I had taken action discreetly. Without informing Holly, I reached out to Ted and introduced him to a company run by an old friend of mine. I wanted Holly's father-in-law to find employment there and achieve financial independence. The CEO, understating my requests, hired him under favorable conditions. To avoid any gratitude, I kept my connection with the CEO confidential, asking both Ted and the CEO to do the same. Sensing something was wrong after the earlier call, I contacted the CEO, and we rushed over together. The CEO said, "I'm here to speak with you. Let me in," and walked into the in-laws' home. The father-in-law stood there, stunned and speechless, as I tried to follow. Holly's mother-in-law emerged from a room and blocked my path. "You have no right to come in." The CEO quickly countered, "No, she's with me." The in-laws appeared visibly shaken and terrified. "Grandma, over here. Help mommy," Lynn's voice called out urgently. At that moment, Lynn rushed over and tugged at my hand. "Lynn, you become so skinny." I noticed that my granddaughter looked much more gaunt than the last time I had seen her. Before I could voice my concern, Lynn urgently guided me towards the back of the house, leading me to a storage room under the stairs. "Holly, in a place like this?" I quickly opened the door and gasped in shock and sorrow. There inside the dimly lit room was my emaciated daughter, Holly. "Mom," Holly murmured with drowsy eyes and tears streaming down her face. I gripped her frail hand tightly. "I'm so relieved you're okay. Lynn told me you'd collapsed. We need to get you to a doctor right away." As I gently tried to lift Holly, the CEO stepped in to help. "She doesn't need to see a doctor. Given her condition, are you really sure about that?" "We haven't done anything wrong," I responded, concerned. "Liars, Mom always worked hard while you both just relaxed. You only gave her a small amount of food, and she even gave her own portion to me." From a recent call with my granddaughter, I learned that since moving in together, Holly had been forced to handle all the household chores from morning till night, like a servant. Despite Holly's efforts to please what she thought were her beloved husband's parents, they criticized her relentlessly. They complained about her cooking, her cleaning, and her parenting. They punished her by cutting back her meals and would say, "If you can't do things properly, you belong in the storeroom." They even confiscated her mobile phone, purse, and bank book. Whenever she protested, they threatened to harm Lynn. I was horrified to discover this. Holly was enduring this abuse with her already limited food further reduced, all for Lynn's sake. Overwhelmed by constant unjust criticism and suffering from physical and mental exhaustion, Holly was unable to think clearly. "Why are you acting like the victim? We only scolded her a little. This is a serious matter. She could be in a life-threatening condition. I intend to get a medical report." "Don't exaggerate. Stay out of our family matters. It's a new. Holly is my cherished daughter, and so is Lynn. I can forgive you for what you've done to them." At that moment, Holly, clearly exhausted, suddenly broke down in tears. "Mom, please stop. I'm afraid Ted will hate me." "Holly, did he say something to you?" "He said he'd leave me and stop providing financial support." "That's strange. I just spoke with Ted, and he mentioned that he's been sending $3,500 every month." At this revelation, the defiant expressions of my in-laws shifted to visible anxiety. "It looks like you've been keeping the money Ted sent Holly for yourselves. You've been deceiving everyone. Does this mean the rumor about Ted having another girlfriend is also false? How could you drive Holly to this point? I will never forgive you for this." At that moment, the sound of the ambulance sirens approached, and the CEO went outside to direct the paramedics. As soon as he was out of sight, my father-in-law's demeanor shifted dramatically, and he gave me a cold, piercing stare. "It's our son's money. Naturally, we have the right to use it. There's no reason for us to give it to a daughter-in-law like you. If you can't accept that, you should take the child and leave." "So, this is why you've been harassing me almost every day, isn't it?" Did you hear that, Ted? I spoke into my smartphone. I was on a call with Holly's husband, Ted, and relaying every word his parents were saying. What are you talking about? I turned the smartphone screen towards the in-laws with the speakerphone on. I will never forgive you for what you've done to my beloved family, my wife and child. I'm cutting off all support from now on. Ted's voice was filled with anger, and his parents could only tremble in response. My father-in-law bowed deeply towards the phone. Ted, I'm so sorry. We needed the money and didn't mean any harm. This isn't a joke. I'll be home soon, so be prepared. The CEO, returning with the paramedics, added sternly, there's no point in keeping such a ruthless man employed. I brought him in for Wendy's sake, but he's been a disappointment. Upon hearing this, the in-laws immediately shifted their demeanor, bowing and apologizing profusely to me. We apologize for how we've treated Holly. We're struggling financially and desperately need your help. Could you please talk to Ted and the CEO on our behalf? You must be joking. How can I forgive you? I'm reporting everything to the police. As I watched the paramedics carefully place Holly onto a stretcher, I offered a reassuring smile to my granddaughter. Lynn, you did wonderfully. You saved your mom. We'll go to the hospital now, and then we can rest at Grandma's house. Thank you, Grandma. At the hospital, both my daughter and granddaughter were diagnosed with malnutrition. Lynn was discharged the same day, but Holly, deeply traumatized, needed to be hospitalized for further treatment. Ted returned briefly to be with his wife and daughter, and his presence helped restore Lynn's smile and brought signs of recovery to Holly. I felt a profound sense of relief. As for the in-laws, they faced legal consequences after a thorough police investigation. The CEO had recorded their actions, which confirmed severe abuse. Since their home was rented, they were evicted, and a claim for $47,000 was filed, $30,000 for embezzlement, and $17,000 for damages. Thanks to my connections with the CEO and reliable childhood friends, the in-laws will be required to repay the amount by working at a specific factory after their prison term. For now, the three of us are enjoying a peaceful time together, eagerly awaiting Ted's return. Once he's back, we plan to move in together at my place. I'm looking forward to a brighter future, supporting my daughter and son-in-law, and cherishing the joyful moments with my granddaughter.
My name is Sandra Smith, and I'm 32 years old. About 3 years ago, I married my favorite person, Mike. We have a wonderful relationship, and I'm also very close to his sister, Emily. We get along like sisters. My husband and I have known each other for 10 years before getting married, so we are like parents to Emily. We've always wanted her to grow up well and have watched over her closely. When Emily reached an important milestone and got a marriage proposal from her fiancé, she wanted to introduce him to us, her surrogate parents. She said, "I would like to introduce my fiancé to you both." This was a very special moment for us because we had cared for Emily like our own daughter and were happy to see her finding a partner and striving for a happy future. It was a joyful time for me and my husband, Mike, and our hearts were full of happiness. Finally, the day came when Emily brought her fiancé, Daniel, to meet us. Daniel seemed to be around my age, maybe 32, and he was 5 years older than Emily. This made me realize she preferred older men. I observed him discreetly and was impressed by his solid features and calm demeanor. However, I noticed Daniel was glancing at me repeatedly. I wondered if he had something he wanted to say to me, or if something about me concerned him. Or was it just a coincidence? This question lingered in my mind. I quickly checked my clothing and hairstyle for any issues, but found nothing wrong. Perhaps realizing that staring at me was impolite, Daniel quickly averted his eyes. In the end, we couldn't understand why he was observing me so closely. Still, Mike and I decided not to worry about it and continued to introduce ourselves and converse with Emily and Daniel, who were sitting across the table from us. "Please take good care of my younger sister. was a classic phrase exchanged, and Mike responded with a smile, "Emily, I'm entrusting you to him." With this, Mike entrusted Emily's future happiness to Daniel, creating a warm atmosphere at the gathering and easing the initial tension of our first meeting. There was a moment when Mike asked Daniel a question he was curious about. "Daniel, may I ask where you work?" I was very interested in his answer and listened attentively. Daniel answered proudly, "You might have heard of it. I work at TE Company, which is growing rapidly right now." TE Company? Is that a famous game development company? I asked. "Yes, that's right," Daniel replied. "I actually changed jobs to work there last year. I didn't leave my previous job because I disliked it. TE Company directly scouted me because they valued my skills. So this is like a promotion. Don't worry, I didn't start as a regular employee," he explained. Hearing this, Mike and I were amazed. I widened my eyes in surprise, and our eyes met. Seeing our reactions, Daniel seemed convinced his story had impressed us, and he continued to speak with even more pride. "That's why I would like you to trust me completely with Emily. I'm rapidly climbing the career ladder at TE Company and am progressing faster than most. Even though I started as a regular employee, my salary will quickly increase and my position in the company will improve rapidly, so please rest assured," Daniel said. Hearing his words, I was so surprised that I was at a loss for words. TE Company is very famous, and I am well aware of it. Mike must also know of TE Company. However, he doesn't work there, so he might not know all the insider information. I think both Emily and Mike are aware that TE Company has a great reputation in the industry. However, it seemed like neither of them had imagined that her fiancé Daniel would quickly rise through the ranks at TE Company after joining. I never imagined that Daniel's career was progressing so quickly. There were parts of his story that made me feel a bit uneasy. But I decided to believe him when he talked about being recruited by TE Company and climbing the career ladder at an incredible pace. As our conversation shifted away from work topics, I eagerly asked Daniel and Emily about how they first met. They said they were introduced by a mutual friend. Daniel was looking for a life partner, but didn't like attending matchmaking events, so he met Emily through a trusted friend. Emily was interested in having a boyfriend, but wasn't actively looking, so she agreed to meet Daniel when a friend suggested it. "I really love how Daniel makes me smile," Emily shared. "His slightly awkward but adorable side really captures my heart." As they shared their feelings with us, it was as sweet as sugar, even though we weren't eating anything sweet. Their close bond and deep affection for each other were very clear. However, there was something that bothered me. As they were leaving our house, Daniel and I walked them to the front door. Daniel started talking to Emily about bringing rice and other gifts. Then, while standing a bit apart, Daniel approached me and suddenly asked, "Hey, do you perhaps not remember me?" I tilted my head in surprise at his unexpected question. "Do you really not remember me?" he asked again, sounding a bit skeptical. I couldn't recall anyone named Daniel from my past. He was handsome, but no specific memories came to mind. Seeing me trying hard to remember, Daniel sighed slightly, unable to hide his disappointment. "Well then, let's exchange contact information, and please tell Michael later." "I forgot to exchange contacts with him," Daniel said. I was shocked by his sudden informal tone. We might have known each other before, but I didn't remember any close relationship with someone who would speak so casually. Inside, I was full of questions. Who is he? What kind of relationship did we have? But since Emily was present, I decided it wasn't the right time to ask these questions, so I stayed silent. After we exchanged contact information, I decided to clear up my doubts by texting him later. Before I could reach out, Daniel messaged me first, saying, I'm surprised that the girl who used to sit quietly in the corner of the classroom when we were in elementary school is now married before me. To tell you the truth, your face hasn't changed much since then, so I recognized you right away. I grew up in a town far from here, and during my elementary school days, I was often teased by my classmates. To escape those painful memories, my family and I moved away when I started middle school. In the new city, I met my wonderful friend Michael, and we gradually built a strong bond. My elementary school memories are painful, and I prefer not to think about them. I was surprised by Daniel's words and asked, "What are you talking about?" I didn't want anyone to misunderstand my contact with Emily's fiancé Daniel, so I explained that our messages were exchanged through Michael. We agreed that in the future, whenever Daniel and I needed to communicate, Michael would be with us to facilitate a three-way conversation. I didn't share the details of my past with Daniel. After I explained the situation, Daniel smiled warmly and asked, "Do you remember being called pure girl in elementary school?" The term had a specific background. It was used to tease me by my classmates. They took it from the word poor because I came from a single-parent family. Although we weren't struggling financially, some of the other mothers had said to my mom, "It must be tough financially because you're a single parent." This rumor spread among the children, leading to teasing. To change our situation, we decided to move to a new place. My mom also considered taking legal action against the moms who spread rumors like, "They must be living a frugal life because they are a single-parent family, probably even using cardboard boxes to prepare meals." This decision influenced our move to our new home. I hadn't heard the nickname Pure Girl, which was once used to tease me, in a long time. One day, I was surprised when a middle-aged man admitted he didn't even know the meaning of the word poor. I calmly told him, "Please be careful with your words. You are my sister-in-law's fiancé, and our relationship doesn't go beyond that. Please don't say meaningless things." After that, he stopped messaging me. Maybe he realized he should stop making rude remarks. Watching this exchange, Michael seemed upset by the man's words, and I could see his face cloud over with anger. "What on earth is that man thinking?" Michael said. "He doesn't seem to understand that he's dealing with the sister-in-law of the woman he's about to marry. He brings up the past from elementary school and acts like you're still kids. Isn't that crazy?" Seeing Michael tremble with rage, I tried to calm him down. I was also concerned, so I called my mom and asked her to look for a class photo from my elementary school days to see if there was a classmate named Daniel. My mom quickly found a boy named Daniel and said over the phone, "Wasn't this Daniel the main one who used to bully you?" At that moment, memories I had forgotten came back to me. The one who bullied me the most was indeed Daniel. I asked her to send me the photo from my elementary school days. Looking at the photo, I saw that Daniel had a much larger, chubby physique back then, which is probably why I didn't recognize him now. After that, I decided to investigate the situation further. A few months after our first meeting, I received a call from Emily. "Sandra, we haven't received your RSVP for the wedding invitation yet. You and your brother are planning to attend, right?" "What wedding invitation?" I asked. My husband and I had been looking forward to receiving the invitation, but it never reached us. When I told Emily about it, she seemed surprised and said, "I definitely sent it. Maybe there was a problem somewhere. Anyway, I'll come and give it to you directly tomorrow." She was very sincere about it. The next day, Michael and I received the invitation directly from Emily, and we confirmed we would attend. We had no idea what was waiting for us at the wedding or how much it would ripple through everything. On the wedding day, Emily was dressed in a pure white wedding gown, looking like an angel. I congratulated her on starting her new life, tears in my eyes. But then the groom, Daniel, ruined the celebratory mood. I wished for Emily's happiness and wanted the wedding to be a success. But when Daniel spoke, he pointed at me. Michael, Emily, and I were all surprised. "Why are you here?" "I deliberately didn't send an invitation," he said, looking displeased. It seems Daniel made sure that Michael and I didn't receive an invitation. This woman grew up with just her mother. When things get tough, she runs away. That must have caused financial hardship. Now she's found a man from a wealthy family, thinking she can live a carefree life. She's a dreamy woman who can't see reality. Daniel accused me without knowing anything about my past. Michael, sitting next to me, clenched his fist in anger. I gently told him to calm down. Daniel continued with his false accusations. "I hold an important position at the well-known tea company. If I marry Emily, are you planning to use your position as my sister-in-law to take money from me?" His friends were shocked and started talking amongst themselves. They seemed to share Daniel's narrow perspective. I approached a staff member nearby and asked for the microphone. Daniel smirked, perhaps expecting me to say something emotional. I responded calmly, "It's ridiculous that someone who can't even remember the face of the president at their own company dares to call themselves an elite. Think carefully. If you intend to sever ties with me, I'll be waiting in the president's office tomorrow, and we'll proceed with HR procedures." After saying that, I handed the microphone back to the staff and confidently returned to my seat. Michael stood up and headed toward the exit. Soon after, Emily started to walk in the same direction. Noticing this, Daniel called out to her, "Wait a minute. Why are you going that way too?" "I'm just trying to break things off with her. If that's the case, there shouldn't be any problems, right?" Daniel, still not fully understanding the situation, spoke to Emily. She gave him a cold look and said, "You really don't know Sandra. She's the CEO of Tea Company. I have deep respect and admiration for my sister Sandra. I can't forgive you for belittling her. I'm breaking off this engagement right now. You've ruined such an important day in our lives. Be prepared." Shocked by Emily's stern words, Daniel was completely taken aback. Sandra decided to talk to the venue staff and remove her wedding dress. She informed the guests that the banquet would be cancelled, and the wedding would be changed to a simple meal gathering, making it clear that this kind of behavior would not be tolerated again. She firmly blamed Daniel for the breakup of the engagement. The ordeal wasn't over yet. The next day, as I had warned him, I calmly waited for Daniel's arrival in the president's office. Beside me stood two large, muscular employees, ready to step in if necessary. When Daniel arrived, he seemed confident at first, but that soon changed. He entered the president's office without permission and sat down without greeting anyone, which was quite rude. "No way. I can't believe you're really the president. This is unbelievable," he said. "If you had done any research, you would have found my information on our company's website," I replied. "Didn't you check before coming here?" It seemed he didn't take my words seriously and didn't bother to find out the truth. He probably thought I was joking or exaggerating. I told him, "I am thinking of terminating your employment contract." "What are you thinking? It's not fair to make such a decision over a slight misunderstanding," he said. "I will consult with the Labor Standards Inspection Office." As he tried to persuade me, I calmly placed a copy of his resume in front of him. "You have falsified your educational background, haven't you? You've claimed to have qualifications and skills you don't actually have, like proficiency in Excel and video editing. Are these statements true?" "About that part," he started, clearly caught off guard. "Falsifying information and making false claims are legitimate reasons for us to terminate your employment," I said directly. He looked shocked at my statement. From the moment I met him, I had a strange feeling about him. I later verified the facts. Our company doesn't usually use headhunting methods, and even if we do, I would meet and interview the recommended candidates directly. I had no memory of having a deep conversation with Daniel. He actually joined our company through the regular recruitment process for mid-career hires and started as a regular employee. He called himself someone aiming for promotion and claimed to be proficient in software, but he had no skills in using them, so he was never promoted. He had a high opinion of himself, and I investigated his attitude thoroughly. Even during work hours, he was lazy, just enjoying being part of the company. I had no intention of tolerating such behavior. Now, with his engagement to Emily officially ended, and since he continued to behave unpleasantly, I saw no reason to keep him around. I told Daniel to leave the company immediately. Since he had been with us for less than 6 months, there was no need to consider severance pay or the handover of duties. As an old friend, won't you help me out? He pleaded. I see no reason to continue our relationship, I replied, arranging for other staff to handle his departure from the company. It seemed he was hoping for financial support from his father, but since his father had cut off support due to Daniel's behavior, that didn't happen. There was an incident in the past where my mother sued for defamation, and it seems Daniel's mother was involved. My father had paid the compensation back then, so he was familiar with such situations. Faced with a similar situation with Daniel, his father probably felt he had reached his limit and disappeared from their lives. After that, Daniel spent his days taking care of his elderly mother while dealing with the financial consequences of his actions. Eventually, he disappeared, taken away by some mysterious people in black, and no one knows where he is now. Someone might know what happened to him, but I have no intention of finding out. On the other hand, Emily was initially deeply hurt when she found out about Daniel's background. However, time heals all wounds. About 6 months have passed, and she now believes it was for the best that they didn't get married. Recently, she started smiling again and has even participated in events to find a new partner. Seeing Emily happy and living a brighter life again, Michael and I are truly relieved. In fact, it seems they are now actively
I was happily settled in life, having married into a wealthy family, yet, Mason sat across from me in the hotel lobby, mockingly commenting on my seemingly simple lifestyle. His sharp voice pierced the calm, taunting me with his latest boast. He had married the daughter of the president of Goldsmith Enterprises. His laughter, filled with pride, echoed in the air, but it was the mention of Goldsmith Enterprises that truly caught my attention. The name was familiar, though I couldn't place it at first. Then, it clicked. As Mason continued to gloat, unaware of the humor I found in his bragging, I reflected on my life. My name is Patricia, and I'm 37 years old, living contentedly with my husband, Mason. I work in my family's real estate business, primarily handling administrative duties, while my father, the president, manages the company's broader strategies. As an only child, I'm expected to lead the company one day. Despite this looming responsibility, I've always strived to balance my personal and professional life, especially with Mason. Mason, who graduated high school and works at a moving company, has a physically demanding job I deeply respect. To avoid making him feel inadequate, I seldom mention my university degree or my anticipated future as company president. We met through a mutual friend during college after Mason's company helped her move. Initially, he was interested in her, but after she turned him down, we started to get to know each other. His laid-back demeanor complemented my meticulous nature, and our relationship blossomed. We married in our late 20s after a brief courtship, and his parents warmly embraced me, making my transition into his family seamless. For the most part, our marriage was smooth. Mason's demanding job often left him exhausted, but he remained devoted, even on his toughest days. He expressed gratitude when I stayed up to share dinner with him. I felt fortunate to have such a caring partner. However, after a year of marriage, cracks began to form in our once harmonious life. One night, as we prepared for bed, Mason unexpectedly brought up the topic of children. His tone, tinged with irritation, caught me off guard. While I also wanted children, I believed it would happen naturally with time. It's only been a year, there's no rush, I reassured him. Despite my calm, Mason grew assertive, quoting statistics about the likelihood of conceiving within a year. The figure he mentioned seemed high, but I suggested a practical solution. If you're concerned, maybe we should both get tested, I said, hoping to address any issues together. His reaction stunned me. What are you implying? That it's my fault? He snapped. Usually, it's the woman's fault. His tone was laced with contempt. I was taken aback. I had never accused him of anything. Yet, Mason seemed intent on blaming me. It's definitely the woman's fault, he added coldly. Hurt and shaken, I could barely muster a reply. Of course, I said softly, so just you get tested. I'm too busy with work. His response was equally harsh. I have a job too. You know, you're just coasting along in your dad's company. His words stung. While my role involved administrative tasks, I was actively learning from my father, preparing to lead the business. That night, any attempt at discussion was futile, and we fell asleep turned away from each other, a heavy silence lingering between us. Over time, Mason's attitude shifted drastically. One evening, after a long meeting with my father, I returned home to find him irate over dinner not being ready. I'm sorry, I explained hastily. I just got home 15 minutes ago. I'll start cooking now. But Mason dismissed my apology. Typical of a small company's boss's daughter, he scoffed, failing to grasp the scale of my father's enterprise, a significant real estate firm with hundreds of employees. His bitterness cast a shadow over our daily lives. That night, as I rushed to the kitchen, I suggested he relax with a drink while I cooked. Alcohol, though a temporary balm, had become a troubling staple in maintaining peace. It pained me to see our relationship reduced to this. The next morning, his cold demeanor persisted as he left for work, his parting words sharp, "Make sure dinner's ready." When I got home, I exhaled deeply, my mind focused on the day ahead. I had taken the day off to visit the gynecologist for fertility testing, something Mason had insisted on, though he refused to participate himself. It was frustrating to face this alone, but complaining wouldn't change anything. If the problem lay with me, I was determined to start treatment immediately. Time was precious, fertility declines with age, and I wanted to address any issues without delay. The clinic was crowded, and I waited an hour before my examination. After a series of tests, the doctor explained that the results would be ready at my next appointment. The possibility that I might be the source of our fertility struggles was daunting, but I resolved to take whatever steps were necessary. When Mason came home that evening, I told him, "I went for the fertility test today." His response was as cutting as it was dismissive. "Figures if the problem's with you. It's good you're getting tested. Let me know the results." His assumption that I was solely to blame was hurtful, yet I held back my frustration, unwilling to escalate the tension. 6 years passed, and I turned 37. Our attempts to have a child remained unsuccessful, and Mason seemed to have resigned himself to the idea of never becoming a father. His late nights became more frequent, and sometimes he didn't come home at all. When he did, he would casually explain that he'd been out drinking and singing karaoke until dawn. His behavior resembled that of a carefree college student rather than a committed husband, and it was increasingly infuriating. Meanwhile, my career demands grew, and I had to push the dream of starting a family aside. But Mason's actions were becoming intolerable. His disregard for our marriage was painfully evident. One day, on his day off, Mason left the house, but forgot his smartphone in the living room. I picked it up to place it in our bedroom, but it rang just then. The caller ID displayed a name, Diana. Assuming she was a colleague, I answered to let her know Mason had left his phone at home. "Hey, Mason, you're late. I've been waiting for 50 minutes, hurry up, or we'll miss the park opening. We haven't had a date in so long," a flirtatious voice said. I froze, stunned. The mention of a date sent my heart racing. This woman wasn't just a colleague, she was someone Mason was seeing romantically. My hands trembled as I hung up the phone, disbelief and anger coursing through me. While I had been dealing with the weight of potential infertility, Mason had been carelessly engaging in an affair. His recent distance and indifference now made perfect, painful sense. Still holding his phone, I felt the urge to confirm my suspicions. Unlocking it using his birthdate, I scrolled through his call history and messages. The evidence was undeniable. His exchanges with Diana were full of affectionate and intimate words that turned my stomach. I meticulously documented everything, taking photos of the messages and call logs with my phone. Then, I placed his device back in its usual spot, acting as though nothing had changed. A month passed in this unsettling limbo. One day, my father, the president of our company, called me into his office. "I have something important to discuss with you," he said gravely. His tone made me brace for serious news, adding another layer of stress to my already overwhelming situation. That evening, Mason, perhaps sensing the inevitable, suggested we consider separating. His timing couldn't have been more convenient. I had already been preparing to address his infidelity and initiate a divorce. "Yes, let's divorce," I agreed quickly. Mason seemed taken aback by my readiness, perhaps expecting resistance. His relief, likely fueled by thoughts of a future with Diana, stung deeply. He handed me divorce papers the next day, which I signed without hesitation. "I'll file these tomorrow. I'll be leaving the house," he said nonchalantly. "Are you sure about the mortgage?" I asked, suspecting he hadn't fully considered his financial situation. His job, while demanding, wasn't lucrative enough to cover the payments alone, but I didn't feel any obligation to cushion his transition. A few days later, I moved back to my parents' house. They were initially concerned about my well-being but became furious when I revealed Mason's betrayal. Their support and reassurance helped solidify my decision to leave him behind. I threw myself into work, using my responsibilities to distract from the emotional wreckage of my failed marriage. A year passed in a whirlwind of projects and commitments. One evening, noticing how consumed and fatigued I'd become, my father suggested I take a break. "Why don't you take a trip? Things will only get busier next month," he said, his concern evident. Grateful for the suggestion, I decided to take a solo trip to the Northeast, craving peace and a change of scenery. The crisp air of the Northeast was invigorating, cleansing my weary soul. The locals were kind and welcoming, their warmth slowly mending my spirit. Wanting to indulge in the best experience possible, I booked a stay in a renowned Los Angeles hotel for the final leg of my journey. After checking in, I settled into the lobby with a welcome drink, letting the fatigue of the past year melt away. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope for what lay ahead. The serene atmosphere of the hotel lobby wrapped around me as I sipped my drink, feeling a rare and precious sense of peace. I half-joked to myself about moving to Los Angeles when a familiar voice pierced through my thoughts. "Huh? Hey, what are you doing here?" I turned, startled, and my heart sank. It was Mason, my ex-husband, entering the lobby with 2 large suitcases. The last thing I expected on this journey of healing was to encounter him. Beside him was a young woman, likely in her early 20s, with flawless skin, bold makeup, and striking red nails. She wore a short skirt that seemed inappropriate for the chilly weather, but her confidence carried it off. "Mason?" I blurted out, disbelief clear in my voice. "Who is she?" "Oh, let me introduce you," Mason said, grinning with an excitement I hadn't seen in years. "This is Diana, my new wife. We're on our honeymoon, and guess what? She's the daughter of a wealthy businessman." Diana, the name hit me like a thunderclap. She was the same Diana from the phone call that had revealed Mason's betrayal. A wave of discomfort surged through me as Mason's pride in marrying someone young and rich became all too obvious. "You're here alone? That's sad," Mason sneered, his words dripping with disdain. Diana smirked as she eyed me. "Mason, is this your ex-wife?" she asked, her tone sharp. "She looks old. Hurry up with the check-in," she added, irritated. Mason draped an arm around her and laughed, a grating sound that broke the tranquility of the lobby. "Yeah, I'm set for life now, marrying into money. Thanks for making the divorce so easy, Patricia," he said mockingly. "Diana's dad is the head of Goldsmith Enterprises. They even paid off our house mortgage in a snap." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Goldsmith Enterprises?" I said casually. "Oh, I know them. Their main office is in that big building downtown, right?" Mason looked momentarily surprised. "You've been there?" "Yes," I replied evenly. "That building is part of my father's real estate portfolio. He bought it recently for $500 million. He's mentioned them before. They're a tenant, though apparently not the best one." Mason and Diana exchanged puzzled glances. "What do you mean?" Diana asked, her confidence wavering. I let the silence linger for a moment before continuing. Goldsmith Enterprises has been late on their rent for months. My father was just talking about starting legal action if it doesn't get resolved. Diana's face paled. That's impossible. Our company is doing great, she stammered, her voice filled with doubt. I'm not making this up, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. I called my father and asked him to send over the most recent rent notice. Within moments, I showed them the document, which clearly listed Goldsmith Enterprises' overdue payments. Diana's bravado crumbled. Come to think of it, she murmured, Dad has been stressed lately, talking about slow sales and layoffs. Mason, however, exploded in denial. You're lying, you're just trying to ruin us. You've always been spiteful, he shouted, his accusations loud enough to draw glances from nearby guests. His words were a sharp echo of our troubled past, but this time, they didn't sting. Spiteful? I repeated, my tone steady. Mason, I have no reason to care about your life. You moved on, and so have I. I just feel sorry for Diana. Did you marry her for her money, just like you rushed into marriage with me to have kids? You always blame others for your problems, but here's the truth, I'm over you. Completely. Mason's face twisted with anger. Arrogant as ever, he spat. You can't even have kids. Diana and I are planning to start a family after this trip. I smiled faintly. Oh, I didn't mention it, did I? I'm 5 months pregnant. His jaw dropped. I remarried, I continued. My husband supports me in every way you never could. And for the record, Mason, I had no fertility issues. The clinic confirmed it years ago. If you're wondering why you and Diana haven't conceived, maybe you should take a hard look at yourself. The color drained from Mason's face. Does that mean I'm, his voice faltered. Diana's scorn flared. You're infertile? Why didn't you tell me, she snapped. Feeling no need to linger, I delivered my final words. Please settle the overdue rent soon, or we'll pursue legal action. Goodbye, Mason. As I walked away, their voices rose in an argument behind me. Back in my room, I felt a deep sense of closure. When I returned from the trip, my husband greeted me warmly. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to relax. I did, I replied, smiling. For the first time in years, I felt truly free from my past. Later, I learned through my father's connections that Goldsmith Enterprises had spiraled into financial ruin, mired in scandal and debt. Mason's dreams of luxury had crumbled as swiftly as they'd been built. My life, by contrast, was filled with new beginnings and genuine love. I had moved on, not just from Mason, but from the shadow he had cast over my life.
I won't allow it, the father of the family declared angrily. This man is targeting our family. In the tense silence that followed as he caught his breath, the older brother spoke up. So what do you plan to do about my sister's engagement? It's over, of course. It's only natural, the father replied. I want you to have no further dealings with my son. The brother, remaining calm, responded, Let's consider the engagement with my sister as if it never existed. Is that acceptable to you? There's no need to stress over it. It's a waste of time. People don't understand their place. He added with a hint of curiosity, I'd really like to see the face of their parents. You probably see them often, don't you? The father looked puzzled, and the brother continued, My name is Tilly. I like it, though I don't know how it was chosen or who named me. By the time I became aware of myself, I rarely saw my parents. My father was an executive at a major electronics manufacturer, and my mother was a board member. They use a hotel near the company as a substitute for home, rarely returning to our actual house. My brother and I were left alone, almost abandoned, in a grand home that hid our situation from the neighborhood. He recalled, I remember a little girl my mother brought home when I was 5. Her name was Carol. She became my sister, but like us, she was left to fend for herself. At the time, it seemed normal, though looking back, it was far from it. My brother, only 7, took on the responsibility of caring for us. Our mother made occasional appearances for appearances' sake, but we relied entirely on our brother. Tilly continued. Carol, who had excelled in school, was suddenly taken away by our parents. It was unexpected. My mother, impressed by Carol's beauty and intelligence, decided to raise her as the daughter of a wealthy family. Disappointed with my brother's poor academic performance, they planned to use Carol to find a competent successor. I later realized they were strategically selecting the successor. My brother's poor performance was due to his responsibilities at home, not a lack of ability. Thanks to him, we were able to go to school and play with friends normally. Yet our parents never recognized his sacrifices. Eventually, it was just my brother and me again. By the time I graduated from middle school, we received a notice that the enrollment fee for the private high school I intended to attend hadn't been paid. I have no intention of spending money on an incompetent child, my mother told my brother, and she stopped providing financial support shortly after. My brother, having anticipated this, immediately withdrew from his own high school and began homeschooling me. He started working at a company I had never heard of and used his earnings to cover my enrollment fee. From then on, he was my sole supporter. Determined to make the most of his sacrifice, I studied diligently and managed to earn a scholarship to university. Maintaining my grades was crucial to lessen the burden on my brother, so I balanced a busy schedule of part-time jobs and studies. My social life was minimal, but as I neared the end of my studies, I suddenly found myself with friends. Throughout school, I was serious about my studies, keeping meticulous notes to make the most of my limited time. Some classmates, recognizing the quality of my notes, began approaching me for help. I found it amusing and perplexing to see people who only appeared around finals asking to borrow my notes. They became so popular that they were often not returned, and tracking them down was a hassle. Often, I didn't even know who had them until I finally got the names, which were usually unfamiliar. As exams approached, a senior male student came searching for me. He had noticed an unfamiliar girl's name on the notes he borrowed from a friend and wanted to find out more. He introduced himself as Gary. I was surprised to see that Gary's name was different from those of my friends. With the finals approaching, I asked, "Are you okay?" "I usually study a lot, so I should be fine," he replied with a reassuring smile. "But it's nice to have the chance to review. Thank you." At that time, I didn't realize Gary was a popular senior among both genders and the son of an executive at a well-known company. "I'd be happy to borrow your notes again," he said, still smiling. His charm was undeniable, and even after learning about my background, he remained unchanged in his attitude toward me. It seemed that Gary liked me too. We began to greet each other during lectures and eventually started attending classes together. Our relationship grew, and we started dating. Despite being surrounded by people who flattered him due to his popularity, Gary was deeply concerned about the pressures of his parents' expectations and the envy that came with potential job offers through connections. I wasn't concerned with social appearances or pretenses, which seemed to give Gary some relief. Even though I was too busy to share my family situation with friends, I couldn't keep it hidden from Gary. He listened without pity and expressed a genuine desire to help whenever I was in trouble. His supportive nature made me fall for him all over again. After graduating, Gary joined his father's company as planned. The following year, I graduated and started working at a trading company. 2 years later, we got engaged. Gary arranged a dinner at a high-end restaurant for both families to meet. On the day of the meeting, my brother attended in place of my parents who couldn't make it. As soon as the meal began, Gary's father voiced his dissatisfaction. "What's the meaning of this?" he exclaimed. "The parents aren't here on such an important day. It's inexcusable and rude." Gary tried to mediate desperately, but I stopped him. It was important for me to explain that my brother had to work to support my education. Despite my heartfelt explanation, Gary's father remained unmoved. "You dropped out," he said harshly. "It's unthinkable for someone of such low status to join our family." He then took my brother's business card and tore it up, accusing us of being after their money. "I won't allow our family to be targeted by this man." Gary's father raged, his fury palpable. Amid his anger, my brother remained calm and during a brief silence, finally spoke up. "So what do you intend to do about the engagement with my sister?" "It's off, obviously. I want you to have nothing more to do with our son," Gary's father responded sharply. Both Gary and I were taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. My brother, however, remained unflustered. "There's no need to insist," he said coolly. "It's a complete waste of time. People don't understand their place. I'd really like to see the face of their parents." Gary's father looked puzzled. "You're always looking at them," my brother added calmly, which only confused Gary's father further. Regarding the broken engagement, my brother continued, "I'll convey it directly to Carol Smith. You've met Carol a few times, haven't you?" Gary's father was visibly shocked. "Carol? You mean Carol Smith? You're related to her?" "Yes," my brother revealed. "Carol is my sister." Gary's parents went pale at this revelation. "So you're the president's son who went missing?" Gary's father asked, astonished. My brother responded with a rueful smile. "That's how they know about me. The company where you and Gary work is run by our parents." Though this coincidence was surprising, it was not as shocking as discovering my connection to Carol after so many years. I was left wondering why my brother needed to relay something to her. He continued, "Tilly, I'm sorry. There were some things I had been keeping from you. I thought it wouldn't be a problem if the engagement went smoothly. Actually, there had been discussions about an engagement between Gary and Carol, which neither you nor Gary knew about." I was stunned by this revelation. My brother's story was not yet over. In fact, I've been in contact with Carol recently, but only for business-related reasons, he added. "I couldn't tell you about this earlier," my brother began. "Carol mentioned that there was a marriage proposal. According to her, during their communications, she discussed the engagement, which was supposed to be with Gary, the man I was initially set to be engaged to. I had suspected that Gary had moved on to another woman, but upon Carol's investigation, it turned out that this engagement was something our parents were orchestrating behind the scenes. Carol had independently obtained this information, but there had been no formal notice of engagement from our parents. It appears Gary was not informed about this arrangement and likely did not know about the double booking. Thus, my brother and Carol concluded that the engagement between me and Gary made the most sense given the circumstances. So, under these circumstances, it's reasonable to call off the engagement between Gary and Carol, right?" My brother said, offering a gentle smile to Gary's father. "The matter with Carol should be irrelevant. It was decided among our parents after all. You were the one who mentioned calling off the engagement with my sister, or are you implying that Carol isn't my sister?" "No, that's not what I meant," Gary's father stammered. "Let's have Carol inform our parents about this discussion. Since the engagement was arranged by them, it shouldn't matter if we, the children, choose to ignore it. As for the engagement between Gary and Tilly, I'll leave that decision to them," my brother said calmly. His tone was peaceful, but to Gary's father, it might have sounded like a threat. The shock on Gary's father's face grew as he processed the implications. "You've repeatedly said you wanted to sever ties with my family," my brother continued. "This means I can only interpret this as a declaration that you don't want your company involved in the crucial line construction project I'm pushing forward," my brother said firmly. "What line construction project?" Gary's father asked, taken aback. He scrambled to pick up the torn business card of my brother. Upon seeing the company name on the card, his face turned even paler. After dropping out of public high school, my brother had started working at the core holding company of a trading and logistics group. This company was a key player in the group, focusing on internal operations and not widely known outside the industry. Through his hard work, my brother had caught the attention of the president, received a de facto handover from the outgoing president, and made significant contributions to the company's expansion. Currently, I support my brother at the same company using the language skills I acquired at university. The line construction project my brother mentioned involved prioritizing the supply of industrial materials, particularly those based on semiconductor materials, to our parent's company. Initially, the performance of the partner company was subpar, and while my brother might not have been personally invested in their proposal, he handled it with a professional approach. He always took his responsibilities seriously and considered all aspects, including Carol's role. It was unexpected for my brother to find Carol in a key position for this project. After graduating from university, Carol had joined our parents' company and risen to a business executive role, having excelled academically. When they reunited after a long time, Carol and my brother exchanged information and identified several issues. One of these was the overlapping engagements with Gary, which had already been resolved. The other issue was related to the pipeline construction project. For my brother, this project was crucial for proving the integrity and reliability of the supply chain. Before the founder and benefactor of the company retired, he aimed to ensure both peace of mind and continued business growth. To achieve this, he wanted to evaluate the operational capabilities of the partner companies and, more importantly, the qualities of their executives. Carol, who had grown into an intelligent and virtuous person, might have influenced our parents' approach to handling people or even contributed to their personal growth. My brother used his business acumen to objectively assess the situation, turning our engagement meeting into an opportunity for evaluation. Our parents showed little interest in the meeting and made no effort to get to know my partner. The true nature of Gary's father became clear through his behavior towards subordinates and the increasing gossip about him. The current character of his friends and our parents also became evident. Gary's father, realizing the gravity of the situation, said, "If that contract is lost, our company will forfeit $500 million in sales." He apologized profusely. My brother calmly responded, "As you wish, we shall not meet again." Before standing up, Gary took my hand and we rose to leave. Whether his whisper, "Let's leave them and get married," reached his paralyzed parents is uncertain. Afterward, Gary and I married, and he severed ties with his parents, leaving the company. He is now supporting my brother and contemplating starting his own business. I am committed to supporting him in this new venture. Our parents' company, burdened with debt, faced imminent bankruptcy. Executives resigned one after another, including Gary's father. Our parents, who had once claimed the honor of raising us, showed up at my brother's house. He repaid a small amount of child support and then cut off ties with them. I decided to follow his example. Surprisingly, our sister Carol took on the challenge of reviving the nearly bankrupt company. "I can't abandon the future of our employees," she declared with the resolve of a business executive. My brother and I pledged to support Carol with all our might. I am now living in the house where I grew up with Gary. My brother renovated it and gifted it to us. We are expecting our small family to grow soon, and I am determined not to neglect raising our child.
If you don't want a divorce, get out of this house right now, all right? These words came suddenly from my husband. Obviously, I was taken aback. He must have been quite confident that I wouldn't file for divorce to go to such lengths to intimidate me. When I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to seek advice from someone else. My name is Anna. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. My husband James and I are about to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. We're still waiting for the blessing of a child, which has led to a constant barrage of questions from my mother-in-law about when she can expect grandchildren. My father-in-law passed away years ago. My mother-in-law lives on the inheritance he left behind. Honestly, I feel on the verge of a nervous breakdown with her constant prodding about grandchildren. Actually, I might already be there. Despite seeing me like this, my husband James doesn't lift a finger to help. In fact, he recently started siding with his mother, blaming me for our troubles. I used to adore him for his kindness when we were dating. But after we got married, his attitude completely changed. Without any consultation, he decided we would live near his childhood home. When James is off from work, I am summoned to his parents' house and made to do housework all day long. Of course, there are no breaks. While I'm busy with chores at his parents' house, the two of them either go out together or stay in watching TV and laughing. I was even yelled at once for making too much noise with the vacuum cleaner. After that, I was forbidden to use it and was told to clean with a broom and a rag instead. Then, my sister-in-law moved back home. She was originally living in a neighboring town, but due to some personality conflict, she had recently moved back. Her return has only added to my burden. She has a 4-year-old daughter and expects me to make her kindergartner's lunch every day. When I tell her that it's impossible because of my job, I get yelled at by my mother-in-law, saying, "Your sister-in-law is dealing with the aftermath of a divorce." My husband says, "Don't you want to be useful to the family?" And my sister-in-law herself says, "It'll be good practice for when you have a child of your own, so you should be thankful." So I end up waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, making my niece's lunchbox and breakfast for my in-laws, then head back to my place, finish my own housework, and go to work. That's the brutal routine I've been forced into. My husband, of course, doesn't lift a finger to help with any household chores. The only time I get to rest is during my break time at work. One day, after living this exhausting routine for a while, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. "Oh, by the way, Anna, you should quit your job. I've talked it over with my mom and sister. You know she's going through a rough time. You understand, right?" "No, I don't get what you're saying." "Listen, I mean quit your job and take care of the house," he snapped at me before storming off to take a bath. I couldn't see the connection between my sister-in-law's divorce and me quitting my job. My husband is stuck in a dead-end job, and there are months when I earn more than him. Does he really think he'd live off his salary alone? Neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law work. I can't understand why they can't handle the housework. Feeling like I couldn't handle any more of this, I grabbed my car keys and drove off to one place that came to mind. That place was my childhood home, a bit far from the apartment we live in now. My parents had moved overseas, and no one currently lived there. Because my parents are the worrying type, I couldn't bring myself to talk to them about the matter. Whenever something unpleasant happened, I come here. This is my home, filled with precious memories. As I was lost in these thoughts, my phone rang. It was my husband. "Hey, I just got to the bath and you're gone. Are you back at your parents' place again?" "Yes, so what? Could you stop running back home every time something goes wrong?" His words simply didn't resonate. "I'll be working from here for a while, and no, I won't go to your parents' house either." Defeated by his forcefulness, I returned to our house. Afterwards, I quit my beloved job in the fashion industry. My clueless coworkers speculated I might be pregnant. I was given no free time, made to manage the household all day. Even when I caught a cold and ran a high fever, no one seemed to care. I had become a servant in this house, a slave to put it bluntly. However, one day amidst this lifestyle, something happened. Guess what? My sister-in-law was getting remarried. Moreover, her fiancé was an executive at a major corporation, earning a substantial income. It was quite a shock. My sister-in-law isn't exactly a beauty, and her personality leaves a lot to be desired. I understood everyone has different tastes and there are all sorts of people out there. The entire in-law family was celebrating, shouting about how she was marrying into money. My sister-in-law, full of pride, showed me a photo of the man. "Huh, this man," I thought, looking at the photo. When my husband said something unbelievable. "Because of this, Anna, your parents' house will become my sister's family place." I was stunned. "Wait a minute, that house is what my parents left for me. It's not for you to decide. The whole family has decided. You, who lives off my money, don't have a say in this," he retorted. Was the person standing in front of me a devil in human skin? That house was left for me by my father, a place for me to live if I ever had children. James should know this. Why can he act so selfishly? My heart was at its limit. As if to add insult to injury, my mother-in-law said, "You can't even give us a grandchild. Can't you be useful around the house for once?" There was no one on my side in this house. I returned home, packed a few belongings, and headed to my parents' house. I made a firm decision in my heart. I would never go back. A few days later, having received no calls from my husband, I thought he might have reconsidered. Then suddenly, the doorbell rang. Standing there were my husband and sister-in-law. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "We thought we should take a look around," my sister-in-law said, barging in. Despite my pleas for them to stop, they ignored me, snooping around the house, treating me as if I was invisible. "This house is pretty nice too. Good for you, Anna," my sister-in-law remarked. "And when do you plan to move out of this house, Anna? My sister's wedding is coming up soon." "Get it together," my husband said, unchanged as I stayed silent. My husband added, "If you don't want to get divorced, leave now." Confident that I wouldn't divorce him, my husband was grinning with my sister-in-law looking my way. "Got it," I said. Once I confirmed, my husband seemed pleased, saying it's all he wanted to hear. Apparently, under the guise of celebrating my sister-in-law's wedding, they are planning a long family-only trip starting tomorrow. Naturally, I'm not included in this little escapade. My husband told me to pack up and leave by the time they get back. Then, he and my sister-in-law left with an excited air about them, watching their backs. 2 weeks later, the day for my in-laws to return from their trip arrived, and my phone began ringing incessantly. The caller was my husband, with calls also from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law mixed in. Unable to ignore the constant noise any longer, I finally answered the call. "Hey Anna, where the hell are you?" my husband demanded. "I'm at home," I replied. "You're lying. You're not at the apartment or at your parents' place. And what's the meaning of this? Your family house has a for sale sign. Yes, I put it up for sale. What are you talking about? He asked, clearly caught off guard. Well, after your mockery, I gave it some thought. The house you're living in now just seems so dirty to me. I prefer cleanliness. After all, I'm divorcing you. Don't mess with me, my husband yelled. That was going to be my line. Let's let our lawyers handle it from here. With that, I hung up on him while he was still shouting. On the day my husband and sister-in-law returned, I had already been in touch with a certain person, a friend of my father's who runs a real estate company. Though I had no prior experience selling houses, he offered me guidance and we managed to strike a good deal. As a side note, the apartment we had been living in was in my name since my husband couldn't pass the screening process. I had no intention of staying there, so I canceled the lease while they were away and sent all of my husband's belongings to his parents' house, cash on delivery. Even after that, I continued to receive calls from my in-laws, which I completely ignored. I recorded all the unpleasant messages they left on my voicemail. According to my lawyer, my husband was hesitant, even though he initially wanted a divorce. It seemed he was reluctant to lose his maid. I anticipated a lengthy battle. But then my husband suddenly agreed to divorce. My lawyer told me that my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law abruptly showed up at his office, insisting that he divorce me and process it quickly. My husband had been wavering on the divorce, but my mother-in-law convinced him that since my sister-in-law's new husband was wealthy, they could afford to hire a new housekeeper and get rid of me, the barren wife, and find a younger, newer spouse. With that, my husband agreed to the divorce. Moreover, they offered to pay a small settlement on the condition that I would not get involved with them any longer. I thought that was supposed to be my line, but I decided to accept what was offered. Not long after, my sister-in-law got remarried. For a while after that, life was quiet. Taking care of myself was so much easier than I thought. I deeply regretted not divorcing sooner. Well, I'm finally free, time to enjoy my new life. Just as I was beginning to embrace this thought, an incident happened out of nowhere. My in-laws showed up at my new home. The moment I opened the door, they barged in, and my ex-husband demanded, "We need to talk. Sit down." Despite wondering who they thought they were, I took a seat. Then he said, "Come back home. We forgive you." Unable to close my gaping mouth, I answered, "Excuse me." I wanted them to leave immediately, so I teased, "Oh, are you talking about your sister's husband? Has he disappeared?" The three of them widened their eyes as if to say, "Why do you know about that?" and stared at me. "What do you know?" "Something. After we registered our marriage, he suddenly disappeared. We can't contact him," my mother-in-law added, with a hint of excitement. On top of that, he ran off with her family's fortune. "Was this your doing? You've brought us such terrible fortune, daughter-in-law." She looked as if she would attack me at any moment. Tired of their baseless accusations, I decided it was time to set the record straight. I decided to reveal a truth to them. "Wow, I didn't realize your sister liked hamburgers so much." "What are you talking about? Hamburgers all of a sudden? Don't you know your sister's husband isn't some executive at a major company? He's just a part-timer at a hamburger shop." The sister-in-law froze, rendered speechless. I continued my story. In my single days, my friend and I loved visiting different hamburger shops. There was one favorite shop where a certain employee always made mistakes and got yelled at by the manager. That man happened to be your sister-in-law's husband. Once I started dating my husband, he told me no more hamburgers, so I gave up my hobby. When your sister-in-law proudly showed me her husband's photo, I recognized him but decided it wasn't my place to interfere and stayed silent. When I showed her the shop's homepage as proof, she stared intently at her husband's picture in the background. By the way, I visited the shop recently with a friend, but her husband was no longer there. He probably left town. That's marriage fraud. It seems that's what they call it. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said. The mother-in-law, who had been silent, interjected, "You knew and you didn't tell us? We took care of you for years, even though you couldn't have children. You owe us." At her nonsensical rant, I decided to reveal another truth I had been keeping. First of all, I'm not the reason we couldn't have kids. Maybe my ex-husband can explain that to you. The mother-in-law looked at her son in shock, and he guiltily lowered his gaze. "When we couldn't conceive after our marriage, we decided to get tested at your insistence. The doctor confirmed there was nothing wrong with me, but my husband had a very low sperm count. The reason we couldn't have children was because of him. When the mother-in-law asked about the test results, my husband instantly lied, claiming I was the problem. I was angry, but they just said nonsensical things like you have to support your husband. Refusing to face the truth, my ex-husband joined forces with my mother-in-law, pinning all the blame on me. In the end, he admitted, "Look, I admit I was wrong. Once the house sells, we'll get a good chunk of money. Let's all live happily as a family again." "Well, we've been through a lot, but let's get along from now on," my mother-in-law chimed in. At the end of the day, I realized they probably came here today with the intention of getting their hands on my money. What a disgusting lot. "No chance I'm getting back together with you, and I don't consider any of you family," I declared. Upon hearing this, my ex-husband retorted, "Getting a little big for your boots now, aren't you? I know even if you sold the house, you hardly have any savings. How do you plan to survive?" It seemed he had sneaked a peek at my bank account during my single days, and now he had this smug look on his face, as if to say, "Now that you know, do as you're told." To poke fun at my situation, the three of them were smirking at me, so I decided to enlighten them with a little truth. "Sure, my savings aren't that much, as I've told you, but instead, I've invested in stocks, enough to live without working for the next few years at least." Their faces looked like they wanted to say, "No way," as they stared at me. Actually, since I was a child, my father was interested in stocks and investments. He had a knack for foreseeing things, and I inherited those skills and built up a decent amount of wealth. The money that supported my parents' move abroad was all from those successful investments, of course. I had kept this secret from my money-grubbing ex-family. Seeing their disappointed faces, I asked, "You can leave now." "Oh, what was it again?" "It's in our divorce conditions. If we approach each other without reason in the future, either party will have to pay a penalty. Are you going to pay, or should I call the police for trespassing?" The word police scared them off, and they left in a hurry. I immediately consulted my lawyer about the day's events and was told to contact him if the ex-family tried to get close again. As expected, once they knew I had assets, my ex-husband sent me a ton of messages begging to reconcile. Nostalgic photos of places we'd been on dates, creepy messages like "I'm here right now thinking about those days" arrived almost daily. I thought about blocking him but kept everything as evidence just in case. And yes, I wondered how he managed to text me all day while supposedly working, but I didn't really care. But when he started trying to contact my friends, I decided enough was enough and sent him a message. "I'll go to the police if this continues." I sent him a photo of our divorce agreement and the nearest police station along with the message. After that, the messages stopped and I never heard from my ex-husband again. I thanked my lawyer and he dropped a bombshell. Apparently, my ex-husband planned to live off his sister's new husband and had quit his job when she remarried. He was a fool for leaving a decent job at a decent company. "You asked for the documents. They should be arriving soon," I told my lawyer. I had placed another request with a lawyer separately from this matter. Soon after we were married, I felt something was off. My precious personal belongings were slowly disappearing. First, it was a necklace that I bought myself when I was single, then a fountain pen my parents had given me as a job-starting present, bags, rings, and above all, the fountain pen were something I cherished greatly. When I talked to my husband about it, he yelled, "Don't worry about losing things." Suspicious, I installed a surveillance camera without telling my husband. What it captured was my husband and mother-in-law rummaging through my closet grinning. Once my sister-in-law moved back in, the footage showed 3 people instead of 2. Taking advantage of my silence, their actions escalated. They were selling my personal belongings surreptitiously for money, fueling their actions. They probably saw the balance in my bank book at that time. It continued until the divorce, so I collected plenty of physical evidence. Just as they thought I wouldn't claim anything, I filed for damages and compensation for emotional distress due to their actions. They must be panicking right now, but it's their own doing. As for what happened to the 3 of them, my sister-in-law's ex-husband found out about this incident, and it seems he took custody of their daughter. Seeing how my sister-in-law didn't seem to care for her daughter, I felt relieved. Just a while ago, I saw the daughter-in-law with her ex-husband, happily holding hands and shopping. She had a happy smile on her face, something I never saw when she was at my in-laws. The 3 of them,
who wanted to live comfortably, apparently applied for welfare, but they were naturally refused as they were healthy and nothing else. As for my husband, his pride kept him from finding another job. Eventually, he went to his old workplace and begged on his knees, but they had been hoping for him to quit and ended up calling the police, which he hated. He had to work, but it seems he could only find day labor jobs. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had to pay me compensation, so they both started part-time jobs at a nearby supermarket. But the two of them, who had hardly worked before, are struggling with the unfamiliar work. Maybe it's a coincidence, but since they started, the supermarket sales have dropped significantly. They got quite a strong nickname, the plague-bringing mother and daughter. By the way, the marriage camera is still at large. I thought they owned the house they were living in, but it was actually a rental. Unable to pay the rent, the three of them moved to a rundown apartment that was infamous in the neighborhood. Their living is hand-to-mouth, and it seems they're always fighting. The other day, the police were called because their fighting was too loud. As for me, thanks to their help, I sold the house and used the money as capital to start a new apparel company with a colleague from my old job. Recently, we've been gaining more customers and even featured in magazines and TV. Being able to return to the job I love is the happiest thing for me. Oh, and there's one more thing. I've met a man through work, and we're getting married. His parents and siblings are very kind, and they've been treating me very well. What's more, we're expecting a baby, and I'll be the mother I've always dreamed of being. Next year, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life right now.